Do 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 do. Yeah, break it down. What? Yeah, yeah. Here we are, streaming again. I'm going to tell you guys right now, I am tired. I'm tired. I'm a tired bunny. Work is work and work is work. It just seems like it's all encompassing and everything it wants to be all at once. The thing that's really killed me, Led LC. Have I even seen you here before? Well, you're the first one in, bud. Congratulations to you. Good to see you. The thing that's really done me in, no doubt. I've been working out now for about, I'd say, a little over a month, maybe. And I'm really proud of how it's proceeding, and really proud of how I'm getting back into the swing of it. I used to be very fit, and used to be working out a lot more. And so I want to get back into that, and I want to get back into that kind of fighting form and into that shape. And the thing that was always missing as a piece, as a component to all this, Radio, good to see you, bud, was a chin-up bar. And I'd been trying to find alternative exercises and trying to do something, right? Conton, good to see you, bud. And I was like researching the internet, being like, what are these, like, what's the scientific name of these muscles right here? Like, what is it? And the internet basically came back with, nah, bro, you need a chin-up bar. Like, no, you just need a chin-up bar. You want to do that, and you want to get serious, and you want to work that out. It's a chin-up bar or nothing. So I got a chin-up bar. I've installed it, and I literally just like hung on the bar and then did maybe like 2 chin-ups, and it's like totaled me completely. Like literally, like there is existential occult energy inside of my body that just doing that, it was like, and it like popped out, and like demons came out of it, right? If that makes any sense, just like Staz, good to see you. Marcus, good to see you too, bud. Marcus, I can't stand pull-ups and chin-ups, but I'm a big guy. Yeah, you know what, dude? I think I've always been of that same attitude. And anytime I've, like, done chin-ups or anything like that, it's been with a shitty, like, hook-in contraption. You know what I'm talking about? You can get those contraptions that sort of hook into a door frame. And so I always felt like... I've never really been able to, like, really commit to it. When I was really fit, Cotton, I have a distinct memory of like we going to like a playground with some friends and just seeing the monkey bars and being able to like swing on the monkey bars like really easily, and like even my friends were like looking at me being like, bro, what's even happening here? Like you're just like a fucking monkey. And I was like, I want to get back to that. This is like, I think that I just need to get through this hump, and then I'm going to be able to, like, get... That's how it's been for most of the rest of it. Like, most of the rest of the exercises and most of the rest of the workout, it was, like, not even 2 weeks of, like, feeling really bad and then being pretty good. And so I think it's going to be the same thing with this. Good to see you, Ligand Disease. I want to be sure I mention, by the way, Ligand Disease has been in the Discord really pointing out Germany is sending 14 Leopard 2 tanks and 88 Leopard 1 tanks to Ukraine. For those of you who don't know, 1488 is a fascist dog whistle referencing a well-known Nazi sentence that is 14 words and 88 characters. And so 1488 is something that Nazis use in order to communicate with one another with like a little wink and a little nudge and a little nod, that ideas and thoughts, and let people know that, oh yeah, we're Nazis. Let's be Nazis together. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And 1488, there being 14 Leopard 2 tanks and 88 Leopard 1 tanks, seems a touch coincidental. Seems a bit on the nose, frankly. And it's always one of those things where it is always one of those things Where, of course, they could just be like, oh, well, isn't that what? That must just be a coincidence, and we didn't. Oh, of course. That's how it always is. If you ever confront these people with that kind of thing, they're always just like, oh, you're just making stories up, and they gaslight you the way that they do, right? Because that's what Nazis do. Just seems a little, oh, you're sending a group of tanks, and it just happens to be these numbers in this configuration. How interesting. How interesting. We'll be talking a little bit more about the Ukraine war. I just listened to Chris Hedges talking about the Ukraine war. Chris Hedges, as it continues down the pipe, is beginning to speak more openly about the 2014 coup, about the Azov Battalion, about the Donbass war. Always couched in this, it still doesn't justify the invasion, language that I think he has to do. But it's good to see that there is any leftist in the conversation who is actually beginning to acknowledge the actual events that occurred on the lead up to the invasion, which is the 2014 coup, fueled by the Nazis, fueled by NATO, that led to the Donbass war, the Azov Battalion's integration into the Ukrainian military. And at least the acknowledgement that, Putin didn't invade in a vacuum. That the people who bear the most responsibility for what's going on today in Ukraine are not actually, in fact, the Russians, but NATO itself. Marcus says, I've regressed from really fit to what I describe as team no cardio. I can bench 3 plates, but I don't even try to work on calisthenics. Oh, man. Good to see you, that guy. Good to see you, Anemone. Cardio's so important, dude, though. It's how you get your endurance, right? That's how you get your endurance. But strength is also very good. I tend to take any work is good work approach, right? I'm not a purist. Literally anything is good. If you spend a half hour every 2 days doing anything, I don't care if you're punching the air, doing shadow boxing. I don't care if you're doing push-ups. I don't care if you're doing yoga. I don't care if you're doing cardio work. It doesn't matter to me at all. Doing something is good, period. And I don't really ever make my only workout plan is come home from work and do a workout. That's my entire strategy. Just no messing around, no dicking around. Come in the front door, take care of my dog, and then do a workout and make it about a half hour. And just kind of pause for a minute, be like, what am I feeling? What do I want to do? And then just do that. And I think that's good. And I think people get really up in their own head about this kind of stuff, and they get really we gotta make sure that it's like this and this and the other thing. I'm like, nah, not really. As long as you're doing something and committing to doing it and trying your best at it, then you're gonna see results and things are gonna work for you. Guys, I'm flipping tired, man. I'm flipping tired. It's February. Nobody's getting any vitamin D whatsoever. I've been having kind of oddly positive but haunting dreams of strange occurrences happening, but that are also somewhat encouraging. Stuff along the lines of the ring girl telling me that I'm doing a great job, and I don't know how to feel about it, because it's thanks, girl from the ring. Am I supposed to feel good about getting encouragement from such a figure? Who knows? Radio says he used to climb 30-meter tower 3 times a day. Bro, there's your workout right there. Forget about doing coming home and doing a workout. Forget it. You did it. You're making the rest of us look like chumps, bud. Well, let's dig into the real important stuff right away, guys. The conversation that was happening all throughout the weekend, right? Everyone was losing their minds. Everyone was going nuts. We're a very serious people, a very serious society, getting really concerned about a fucking balloon. That's the best thing ever. that what with a war raging, a potential ramp up to nuclear war, don't forget about the climate change apocalypse that we're definitely doing nothing about. The thing that we should all pause and pay all the attention to in the entire world, it's so important, you guys. You can't even imagine how fucking important it actually is that we stop and look as a people collectively at a balloon that maybe it did come over from China, who gives a shit, and chances are good it's not a spy balloon. It's probably just like a weather balloon that probably just got blown off course. Because, like, they just release these things and then, like, get data from them. And then the Americans were like, oh my god, it's a balloon that got sent over from the China. China's taking pictures of us and doing a spy satellite. Satellite spying on us. Like the most ineffective spying of all life. Like, these guys know that, like, Google Maps exists, right? Like, these guys are aware that, like, China probably has access to something like Google Maps where they could just, like, look at America. Like, what is it that this spy balloon would even be getting? What kind of information would this spy balloon be receiving that would be somehow superior or better than just Google Maps? And no one seems able to really answer that question because the answer is it doesn't matter. It's so fucking irrelevant. Yeah. Stealth balloons sending dirty EMP nuke bombs or my guards. Like, it's so obvious. Good to see you, by the way, Methane. Strong first comment, Methane. It's so plainly obvious that this is just the United States media whipping up hysteria, anti-China hysteria, for no reason other than to whip up an anti-Chinese hysteria. And that they're so desperate. The empire has gotten so pathetically desperate to try to find some way to galvanize public opinion to such a degree to ramp up a war and justify some kind of war with China, that they're literally saying, China's sending over spy balloons, guys. Believe this bullshit. You just uncritically accept the narrative that China is sending over balloons with cameras on it instead of opening Google Maps. Like, it's so fucking brain dead. It's, like, so stupid that it is actually insulting to... Is it, like, insulting might not be, like... I just don't know what it's going to take for, like, the average citizen to realize how badly they're being played for dupes. Like, I'm constantly shocked by how absolutely... I'm not going to be nice. There's no TikTok today, so why should I be nice? This is all inside baseball today. I'm just constantly surprised at how absolutely mind-gobbingly gullible Westerners are. That we've really drunk our own Kool-Aid and we actually think that, like, we've got to go overseas and destroy the rest of the world for their own benefit. And I just don't think there is actually gonna be a bottom to this. Like, I actually think this weather balloon thing isn't the stupidest thing that we are going to say or do. And it's just gonna get stupider and more hysterical. that what we actually are witnessing in big serious ways is an empire that can no longer justify itself and its own existence, desperately trying to find reasons and rationales in order to do just that. That more and more people are seeing that the emperor has no clothes. Less and less people are signing up to the United States military. More and more people are seeing that these wars that we have waged overseas are harmful and stupid. The Ukrainian war has blown up in people's faces in huge ways. The sanctions that we have put on Russia have completely backfired. And we are literally facing a civilization that is marching itself towards utter irrelevancy. And that when the rest of the world finally sighs and drops the dollar as the reserve currency, the United States empire is going to retract. And it's going to retract so swiftly that it's going to make people's heads snap. All of these gullible rubes that are walking around talking about Chinese weather balloon. There's a balloon in the sky and they're taking pictures of Macaws. And Marcus is right. China has a network of 44 imaging satellites, yet don't know what a weather balloon would accomplish, right? Like, and these people who are so gullibly easy to whip up into a pointless hysteria about a non-event are going to experience a kind of whiplash, just like a neck-cranking whiplash, when they literally will not be able to understand or comprehend what is actually going on the world stage, because all they've ever said or believed is manifest destiny, we're the greatest, nothing can stop us, USA, USA, even our mistakes are good decisions. Like our worst mistake is better than a communist country's best action, right? Yeah, I wonder what the profit margins were on that 500K missile, exactly. Content's like 2 years or less. Y'all, we gonna do this. Yeah, I'm loath to peg a number to it. Like, I'm loath to be like, this is when it's gonna happen, because it's like, you know, you can't, you see the building falling over, but you can't really give a timeline. It's gonna fall in its own time. But I've heard people who have been saying, like, by 2030, like, it's on the same trajectory as the British Empire, right? Like, when the pound sterling was dropped as the world reserve currency, the British Empire was forced to retract. It was just completely unable to assert itself on the world any longer. Yeah, U.S. military officials are saying it. It's the whole thing has spiraled completely out of control, and the people that we have in positions of power are utterly disinterested in preventing it. Like, I think that that's also the other side of it. Like, we have the most unserious people possible. I don't think that we could be more unserious. And I don't mean this from a, like, oh, it's the liberals and we got to swing over to conservatives kind of dumb way. Like, the entire political apparatus is incompetent. And partially incompetent on purpose, but also incompetent in a much darker and absurd sort of a way. Like, the more I really dwell on this idea of our education system, the more I really come to realize that our education system exists to teach us nothing except how to withstand sitting in a cubicle for our entire life. That's literally the only thing we were taught. Meanwhile, China's like teaching kids math, like important shit. And then when they graduate from their schools, they use that math for things that are important. Like they're not dicking around with this class-based nonsense of like, well, you need to be a good little worker, John. Like they want to look at people and say, okay, you want to be a serious professional, and we want to seriously advance the ball here. We want to make some serious gains. Like, and those gains are not how much wealth can a billionaire have. Those gains are, well, how strong can our civilization be? And it like, and I'm like completely out of rage and sympathy. I think this is really what it is that maybe even 2 years ago, I'd be like, oh my God. But now I'm like, we fucking deserve it. We have worked really, 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 really hard for this outcome. We have tried everything possible to ensure that this decline would happen, and have done everything we could to absolutely avoid any kind of unifying project, any kind of idea that would actually bind the nation together in a meaningful way. And literally everything. Over the last 40 years, we have actively sought to dismantle the very initiatives and policies and programs that any country would need in order to consider itself a stable country. And we are going to pay an extremely heavy cost for it. Nations overseas that literally have been relying on us militarily are going to pay a heavy cost for it. And we are simply just going to become some weird little backwater that, like, the West will be to the rest of the world as Florida is to the West. That when we all look at Florida and go, oh my God, that's exactly how the rest of the world is going to look at us. And if they're smart, and they're much smarter than we are in large scale ways, they'll like literally just publish articles like that. Did you see what America Man did? America Man robs Walmart with 2 crocodiles. America Man throws hedgehogs as weapons in crime spree shootout. Marcus says, I don't see the U.S. imploding without waging war. Well, and that's common. Like, that's common. Like, all dying empires engage in pointless wars and militarism that are an attempt to reclaim their power and prestige that's already well gone. And it's an act of total desperation. Like, I take a look at the Donbass war and then the subsequent Ukraine war as an act of utter desperation. Like, there's literally no reason to wage this war outside of war profiteering, and an attempt to bind Europe and keep Europe and in NATO and keep everything together. But it's backfired so obviously, so overwhelmingly obviously. Gas prices are spiking. I know somebody whose gas bill literally doubled. The UK is falling into massive strikes, the largest strikes we've seen in 100 years. France is falling into massive strikes. Big protest movements and strike actions are taking place across Europe. You have rumblings of that throughout America and Canada, although we're a little behind the eight ball. But once our collapses truly begin to sink in, you'll see them more seriously. Like, there's the rule, and so the ruling class reaches for the only tool it knows how to use anymore, which is some kind of act of extraordinary violence in order to justify its existence. And the truth is that the American empire doesn't have a reason to exist anymore, if it ever did in the first place. Yeah. I'll tell you, nothing compares to the U.S.'s capability to logistically wage war on foreign soil. The result would be horrific, nuclear or not. Absolutely. I mean, it's what America has been doing its entire life. Like, that's what America does. America doesn't do anything else. Like, the little momentary blip, the little just like bloop of time where we had one generation that actually had the benefits of getting some kind of education and getting some kind of stability in the society for a very brief period of time, is not the rule of America. It's not how America has operated. And America's just returning back to what it's always been, which is just a psychopath nation that resolves all of its problems through extraordinary acts of extreme violence. And all of this military personnel, like when the empire retracts, all of these military personnel are going to immediately be part of the political system. Like, they are the new ruling class of America, and the military is simply going to take over, and sometimes in very explicit ways. Like, I'm sure they'll try to take over in what's considered democratic ways, but I won't be too surprised to see simple just military bullying. Like, I won't be too surprised to see the same tactics that they use throughout the Middle East to just be used in America. I won't be surprised to see that at all. Yeah. It's just experience. There's no generation where America hasn't conducted foreign war. Well, and or not to mention internal war, like the Civil War happened, right? Like, America has it's how American capitalism solves problems. That's all. That's the long and short of it. Like, I've got a problem. How do I blow someone up for it? Like, and it's quite literally the first thing they try. Like, what we are faced up to, and the real terrifying reality of the American ruling class is that these people are clueless. They don't know how to do diplomacy. I've been saying it over and over and over again, and it's getting more and more obvious. Not only do they not know how to do diplomacy, they're utterly disinterested in doing diplomacy. And this is absolutely what's going to lead them to complete and total catastrophe. That we have an entire generation of people in the ruling class, and then the people who are behind them even, who literally have been operating under the assumption that we're the greatest country in the world and we're indispensable. We're completely and utterly indispensable. When we walk into the room and tell people what to do, that's what we expect to see happen. That we're not negotiating in good faith, we're dictating terms. And if they don't say yes to us, then we blow them up and steal their shit. And that's exactly how the United States has been operating, at least for the last 40 years, if not longer. And now we are entering this multipolar world where diplomacy is going to be the primary skill. It's going to be how do we persuade people? How do we create good deals? How do we engage in diplomacy in such a way that people will actually see that we're a beneficial partner to work with moving forward? And not only do we not know how to do that, we look at that idea with disdain. we look down on other nations and think you want us to negotiate with you as if we're equal peers or something. Like we really are that like catty bitch mean girl from high school. We really are that. And the idea that we're gonna have to stoop down and actually talk to these people and listen to what they want, and think, oh, we have to actually provide something for them outside of this paper money we invented. Like, good to see you, Santora. Hey, John, are there certain keywords that could cause a comic to get auto-nuked? I assume. I don't know what the rules are, dude. Like, honestly, YouTube isn't exactly... Like, none of these social media people are very upfront about, like... And honestly, I wish they were. Like, this is the thing that pisses me off with all this social media stuff, is that it's all Kafka-esque and vague on purpose, right? Oh, you violated our the thing that we have. I forget the name of it. It's so fucking annoying. Yeah, switch to live chat, but I don't know if that's going to help you. Like, at this stage in the game, I just wish that they were open. I wish that they literally would say, oh, here's the list of terms that gets you shadow banned. Here's the list of terms that will be removed. Here's what flags you. Like, I know why they don't. They don't do it so that we won't all go like, oh my god, that's such horseshit bullshit. That's right up here, bud. Live chat, I could change it to top chat, and then I could change it to live chat, and so can you. And I don't know if that helps or any of that kind of stuff, because again, this is all like this Kafka-esque nightmare, like faceless robots deciding what we can and cannot discuss. You shall be shadow banned if you dare discuss the ongoing Ukrainian war. You shall be deprioritized in the algorithm. Like, there's a guy that I follow on TikTok who is a very well-educated Marxist. He's a teacher as well. Midwestern Marx is his name. And every time I see his content, I'm like, wow, this guy really fucking knows his shit. Like, I feel I'm more of like a shock jock compared to this guy. Like, this guy could lecture, and he every time he talks, I'm like, oh shit, I'm learning shit from this guy for sure. And he had his channel banned, because for the 7th time this year, he's had his TikTok channel banned. And he started a new channel, and one of the first videos he made was a commentary on how obvious it is that his previous channel had been shadow banned. Because now he's making content, and he's getting like 15K likes on a video right away. That people are like looking at his Marxist content and being like, yes, Marxist content, please, upvote. And so the trajectory for him is going to be this moment of growth, because the robot is going to be like, oh, people really like this and watch this, like it. And then he's going to hit that tier where they're going to be like, oh no, he's a communist, shadow ban. And then he's going to keep growing anyway, right? He's going to keep growing anyway. And then he reaches a certain threshold of growth, and then they ban him, right? That's how this cycle works for communists. And the idea that we live in a quote unquote free market or whatever, or free speech. We care about free speech, not for commies, but free speech. Command Genius, good to see you, bud. So that's a long way of me saying that guy. I have no idea why comments get banned. I don't know. I don't know if it's swearing. I don't know if you said, I don't know what you said, so I don't know what to even critique on it. But like, so and some nights it seems worse than others. Like that's another thing. Like some nights it's like nothing, nobody gives a shit, everything's fine, and then some nights it's like everybody is having comments that don't come through, and everybody is experiencing something. So I don't know what the rules are. These social media channels are not actually very upfront about what the rules are. I wish that they were. I would gladly accept just like a nakedly fascist, just like, don't talk about Ukraine. We'll literally deprioritize you on the algorithm if you say the word Ukraine. Don't do it. I would prefer that to this. This kind of like, am I getting fucked? What's going on? I don't even know. Got him fired even? What are you even talking about, Compton? What are you even talking about? Dude, look at how much someone has written about this balloon. Like, it's so absurd. Like, all of the media coverage has accepted the unsubstantiated claim that the airship was a secret Chinese surveillance balloon, specifically targeting U.S. military installations. Far more likely is the count given by Beijing that the high-altitude balloon was conducted meteorological surveillance and was blown off course, entering the United States on January 28th. It's a civilian airship used for research. Like, balloons get blown by wind, guys. Did you know that? Did you know that you can put a balloon in the air, hoping that it's going to go one way, and then the wind will blow it somewhere else? Did you know? Command Genius says, I've been getting recommended Holocaust denial videos and Nazi apologia videos on TikTok for a while now. I've deleted TikTok for now. Like, TikTok cannot stop showing me clips of Jordan Peterson. It just can't do it. It just absolutely is like, oh, we got this guy. This guy needs to see as much Jordan Peterson as possible. That's what this guy needs. He just needs to pull up his bootstraps and, like, clean up his bedroom. That's what he needs. Right? There was some headline from The Onion, like, American immediately surrenders to Chinese balloon. Yeah. And they shot it down with a fighter jet. Hoorah! That's fucking right. If you're gonna do something, you better do it the right way. With Americanism. Like, literally, they could probably have just, like... They probably could have taken their own balloon and just, like... They could have shot it down with a drone. Like, there's so many things they could have done, but they, like... went whole hog with it. We gotta be USA. USA. Because we're such a very serious people. We're such a very serious people. So this one's from Rainer, and I always love reading Rainer's stuff, so even though I'm fucking tired of shit, I'm gonna read it. This last year's big lie to working people. That your inflationary hell is worthwhile for defending Ukraine. Biden says high gas prices will continue as long as it takes to defeat Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Today's working class people have been robbed of their voice, and that's made the ruling class able to speak for them. When our government says that the nation is glad to experience heightened standard of living costs to fight Washington's adversaries, the working people who are truly being hurt by this can't say how they feel. They have no voice in the popular media. They have no voice in government. Even the politicians who say they speak for the workers are advancing the military adventurism project that's destroying the lives of these workers. Almost 2/3 of Americans are now living paycheck to paycheck because of the inflation that Biden's proxy war has caused. This is not a trivial issue for them. It's not something that can be framed in dry statistical terms. It means tens of millions of lower-income people, especially the ones from marginalized groups like the transgender community and the black community, are being subjected to scarcity that's likely to get worse for the foreseeable future. The claims from the Democratic Party to be in solidarity with these groups are ultimately lies. Aiding the war machine is the priority of these liberal politicians, and if that entails condemning the most vulnerable parts of society to deepening poverty, they'll always choose the war machine. These politicians will say whatever they can to hide their own responsibility for what's happening to the people. Biden is protesting that inflation was already there when the war started, a defense that he made invalid when he promised 4 years ago that nothing will fundamentally change under him. If Biden knew the way things are run is destroying the ability of proletarians to live, then why did he say from the start that he doesn't plan to fix this? He's intended neither to undo the half-century of austerity policies that wage war against the working class, nor to make the diplomatic decisions that would halt these war escalations which have accelerated our economic chaos. At every opportunity, he's made the choices that he's known will harm our material interests. The ruling elites, along with their narrative managers in our media and academic institutions, will never admit that this conflict is their fault. They'll keep minimizing or hiding the realities of the US-perpetrated Ukrainian coup, of the Kiev fascist regime's atrocities in the Donbass region, and of this regime's intentions for ethnically cleansing the Russian speakers. NATO's broken promise not to expand towards Russia isn't even the strongest argument for why Russia was justified in taking action. US imperialism had engineered a genocide threat in what used to be eastern and southern Ukraine, and this called for action on Russia's part. Hey, who's been saying that? Who said that from basically fucking day one? Glad to see the rest of the fucking world starting to catch up with me. Thanks for tuning in. These regions have broken away because their people have needed to protect themselves from a 21st century Reich. If not for NATO's aid, Russia would months ago have fulfilled its objective to militarily exhaust Kiev too much for the regime to any longer pose a threat towards the Donbass and Crimean populations. Operation Z is a mission to take away the tools for violence from a government that lacks the right to use those tools, due to it being racist on the same level as the original Nazis. Russia hasn't wanted anything more than to destroy this government's military, as well as the fascist militias that the government directly backs. It hasn't planned to occupy all of Ukraine, only the parts that act as a refuge from the fascists. The wars having started and having lasted this long was the choice of the imperialists and the imperial lackeys. They're the ones who have made Russia do the things that any country in its situation would do. Putin is nothing more than the one who happened to be in charge of Russia when these circumstances appeared. Those truly responsible for the war make Putin into a reflection of their own moral sickness. They say he's a new Tsar who wants to conquer the globe for imperial riches and glory. The truth is that interests in economic domination and pathological love for war are only to be found in the USA and its imperial partners. To see imperial intent behind Russia's decision, you have to choose to see it. The trick of imperialism's myth-makers is to invent evidence for their myths. The human mind has an innate vulnerability where it, by default, believes an assertion so long as that assertion appears to be supported by proof, regardless of that proof's factual validity. A NATO-funded neuroscience study is where this phenomenon was identified, and NATO has been exploiting that vulnerability to make the Ukraine narrative appear unquestionable in the view of most of society. So far, this cheap manipulation strategy where the propagandists concoct fabricated Russian mercenary Nazi ties or publish skewed statements from imperialist academics about how Russia is fascist has succeeded at keeping the people passive amid their being robbed by the war machine. People's default reaction has been to figure that because Ukraine is the democratic country, even though Ukraine's executive power is at this point consolidated far more than Russia's, the military aid and sanctions at least advance a worthy cause. If Russia is seen as the aggressor, or at the least of a comparable moral status to Ukraine, then mobilizing against the war machine isn't taken into consideration. I don't fault the average working class person for being in this state of ignorance. It's all they know. The ones I do fault are those who, after becoming political, decide to still believe in the imperialist lies and fight against those who seek to stop the empire. America's left, broadly speaking, are betrayers because of this. They've presented themselves as the ones to come to when seeking out avenues for advancing economic justice, then hindered the struggle for working class victories by embracing the empire's psyops. And they haven't even necessarily done it out of naivete. The average consumer of imperialist media is naive. The political actor who promotes this media's lies is corrupt. The left has been corrupted by opportunism of both a domestic and global scale. It's decided to embrace neocon ideology out of fear that being principled on anti-imperialism would alienate too many liberals, who only exist because our imperial system cultivates liberal ideas. It also fears anti-imperialism because of the left's defining figures, and so many of the smaller leftist actors will never accept an outcome where neo-colonial extraction has ended. They don't want to stop living off the poverty of the majority of the world, an exploitive dynamic that imperialist war is instrumental for maintaining. Those obstinate about upholding the Ukraine PSYOP, slandering the DPRK, demonizing China, maintaining the lies about Syria, and advancing the other narrative imperialism uses to justify its destructive schemes have made their choice in which side of this power struggle they want to fight for. Those who presently believe imperialism's lies for no other reason than that they're working class, and have so far been exposed exclusively to these lies as they try to survive under a cruel system, have not yet had the chance to make that choice. It's the job of anti-imperialists to bring our ideas to this silent majority and rally them to become vocal. They have more of an incentive than ever to receive our calls, because their defying the empire is what's needed to save them from the inflationary hell the empire has doomed them to. Yeah, rain or shade, man. That's good shit. That's good shit. That's like a massage for my consciousness. Like, it's just nice to know that there are other people out in the world who think as I think. And he just writes so, like, powerfully and convincingly. I just have to read it. I have to read it. Makes me feel good about myself. Makes me feel good about myself. Santora says there's groups on TikTok that make digital maps and can show you how it works. Show how what works? The weather balloon? No, they needed a fighter jet. Yeah, that's right. The algorithm has more than a slanted program. I think it has a hand inside it as well. Well, I mean, they've obviously trained these algorithms. Good to see you, by the way, Box. They've obviously trained these algorithms to be fascist. Like, that's pretty straightforward. Like, and it's pretty easy, right? You just need to not give it all the information. Just literally don't show it other information. That's all they do. That's the whole idea at this point. And I mean, Rayner in this article touches on it. Just make sure people are ignorant, and more importantly, proud of their ignorance, right? It's so important that people think that knowing things or having knowledge is actually something like the classic jock nerd dynamic, right? Jocks look at nerds and just go, nerd. USA, and that's it. Like, that's the whole dynamic. Our, like, praise of ignorance, our pride of ignorance is one of the major pillars of our downfall, without a doubt. Cotton says, wow, so somehow North Koreans are having YouTubers talk about their country and being called propaganda. Yeah, of course. Like, if you talk about a country that the empire wants to destroy, you must be a propagandist, right? You can't just be, genuinely interested in another nation. You can't actually be interested in an idea like peace, for example, a strange and foreign concept to Americans. Like, what's peace? What are you talking about? No, it's got to be that you're, like, in the pocket of North Korea. That has to be the case. There's groups on TikTok that make digital maps to show you how it works. The algorithm and where it sends you based on interest links. Interesting. I'd like to see more on that. Like, it just does seem like pretty clear to me that there are built-in embedded pathways. That if you start talking about Marxism or communist ideas, one of the things I think about, and I think it's probably true, is that these social media, it's good to see you, Tinker. A lot of these social media companies probably create dead-end cul-de-sacs where leftists who contribute to places like TikTok are likely only shown to other leftists. And so there'll be like a robust conversation and debate that happens on these social media platforms, but they'll be sequestered. And once the algorithm understands that your interests is leftism, they'll try to funnel you constantly away from it. But if they can't, then they'll just funnel you into this leftist circle and isolate you there. So they'll show your content to other leftists so that you'll feel as though you're getting heard, and all of the leftists can upvote themselves and talk to one another, but they'll never actually allow those voices into the wider conversation or into the broader conversation. So there's a ghettoization of intellectualism that happens. That's my assumption of how they're going to run this, so that people like myself, or maybe you, feel like you're contributing to something, feel like you're part of a larger thing, and there's this hope that this will all grow and then spiral and become a much larger thing. But really what's going to happen is they're going to put a little clamp on it and say, okay, so we've got this group that talk to one another. There they are. And they can all talk to one another. And here's the mainstream. Here's where most people are. And these people will be here talking about Lenin or whatever. Right? That's more or less my assumption on how it's actually going to go. Marcus, pretty weird seeing my comment, but not on your chat. Guessing that's YouTube deleting it. Absolutely, bud. Yeah, YouTube's on it today. I don't know why. I never really understand why. Like it just seems like I don't know what they're shooting down. I don't know why they're shooting certain things down. I don't know what keyword you're using. I don't know any of that. If you suspect you do, try breaking it up. Like try making it a more not as obvious. Yeah, YouTube as well. I usually just watch leftist stuff, and Joe Rogan channel, Steven Crowder, or Ben Shapiro keep showing up on my homepage. Absolutely. No, I'm on live chat. Oh yeah, they don't like it when people talk about Nazis, for sure. Well, I mean, it's kind of tough to avoid Joe Rogan, Crowder, and Shapiro at this point because they're actually huge. Like, Joe Rogan's huge. Like, he's got more viewers than anybody else. And that is part of it, right? First of all, he's got way more content than anybody else. Because at this point in the game, he just has people making clips and content for him. Like, Joe Rogan's not sitting there being like, that's a great clip. He's not, like, rewatching this stuff. Right? He has people he's hired to do that very thing. And that's their entire job, is to clip his stuff and spread it into social media. And so does Crowder, so does Shapiro, so do all these guys. So does Peterson. Like they all have this. Like, just some other person they've hired to do this job for them. And so they have so much content in the first place. And then on top of that, like, these guys are the most popular people in the conversation, for better or for worse, right? Like, it's a pretty good reflection of America. Like, that's the truth. And I actually do think that of these algorithms as well. Like, that, or of these social media systems as well. That, like, if everybody listened to Shapiro and Crowder and Rogan and was like, no, we need to help other people and like, be kind to one another. Like, shut the fuck up. And they all abandoned these guys. Like, if nobody listened to Shapiro or Crowder or Rogan, then they'd just be weird guys off on the side. Like, no one would give a crap about them. But the truth is that these guys are saying things that resonate, because the hard truth to accept about what it means to live in America and in the West generally is that fascism is extremely popular. It's just an extremely appealing, very alluring ideology that really draws people in. And people are really, like, and there are huge segments of the population who are absolutely in love with fascism, who live a fascist life. Like, if you're a cop, right, you're a fascist. So it's pretty straightforwardly. I'm listening to an audiobook right now. I'm listening to Matt Taibbi's The Divide. One of the things I've decided to do, like, I take the streetcar, I take the transit to work every day, and I've realized, oh wait, I can get audiobooks through the fucking library, and here's Chris Hedges' recommendation books, and so there's The Divide right at the very top, Injustice in the Age of the Wealth Gap, and Matt Taibbi is just painstakingly going through how there's this obvious divide in American society. He begins by going through the 2008 financial collapse, and right now I'm on chapter 3, and he's painstakingly taking you through the life of a black man in America, and how often this guy is getting stopped by cops, and how often this guy is being harassed by police officers, and how often this guy is being charged with crimes like standing on the sidewalk, like, and how often this guy is being forced to be summoned to court in order to have these charges dropped. It's happening super, super, super regularly. And while Taibbi is telling this story about this black man, he's also giving you a wider picture of how often stop and frisk, right? How often these things are actually happening. And so you have this larger statistical number, like numbers like 600,000 stops in a single year. And then you're tying it into the single life of one fellow and seeing how often this is actually happening to him, why this is happening to him, what the incentives of the police are, what the incentives of the politicians are, what the incentives of everybody is to why this exists in the society. And then he'll take that and juxtapose it against, like, some Ben Shapiro type who, like, thinks that the best thing to do is to flood every neighborhood with cops. And it's I genuinely cannot help but feel like what is going to happen in America is that white people will begin to be treated in the same way that black people and Hispanic people have always been treated. That's really when we know that we're in the actual decline, the actual collapse, is that police will begin treating white people the same way they've always treated black people and Latino people. And when the white people complain about it, the black people and the Latino people will be like, yeah, welcome to America, buddy. Welcome to America. Right? And it is impossible for me, hearing these stories, listening to something, especially a story as well told as Matt Taibbi can tell a story, it is impossible for me to walk away from it thinking anything other than fascism is extremely popular. That we have a police force that is absolutely fascist. It's happy it's fascist. It's pleased with itself. The people who are doing the work understand that they're fascists. They know that they're fascists. And they're not going to stop. Like, they're not suddenly going to have a come to Jesus moment. That this fascism is going to entrench itself and is happy to elect overt, obvious fascists. Like, it's happy to elect people like DeSantis. And so in the midst of this, it's like, yeah, of course the most popular people in America are fairly overt fascist types. Or fascist adjacent people. Like, Rogan himself is a liberal. Like, he keeps talking about the things he supports and the ideas he supports, and while he does have this, like, grind set sort of attitude, anytime he talks about politics, he does talk about how, like, yeah, we should have welfare systems, we should have this sort of stuff, but it's all still in direct support of capitalist imperialism, right? And so what we're going to see is the overt result of keeping a populace ignorant like this. Like, we're going to see the stupidest country on the planet blow up. And it's going to be crazy. It's going to be crazy, crazy, crazy to watch. Yeah, aren't police considered class traitors? I mean, not really, because they don't, like, yes. I'll just say yes. There's cops aren't workers. They're not doing a job, right? Like, they work on behalf of the capitalists. That's who they work for. They're more like knights. Like, they work on behalf of the king. They're not interested in the peasants. They're of a different type. Feeling better? No, I said I wouldn't stream yesterday. And I didn't. And I'm tired. I'm tired, guys. This fucking I'm looking forward to the nicer weather. Looking forward to the sunlight. It'll be nice to have a period of time where I'll be able to have a window open and there'll be sunlight hitting me. Like, it's 7 o'clock where I am and it's dark. And I'm just like, meh. But I'm as far south as I can get while still staying in Canadian territory. Well, not as far. I could go farther south, but... yeah, don't worry. They'll go after the police pensions and make them private. Just give it time. But, like, I don't think that's going to resolve anything. Like, I think that's just going to entrench the issue. Right? It's just going to entrench the issue and make the problem worse. Because, like, at this stage in the game, like, I don't think I'm being too harsh. Like, if you're a cop, you know what it is you do. Like, you can't pretend anymore. Like, I can't imagine actively doing this job and still pretending that you're interested in serving the public in any kind of serious way. Like, I genuinely don't think, I don't know how you could consider that possible. Like, maybe it's a little bit different here in Canada. Like, I know that when Doug Ford tried to put in stop and frisk legislation over COVID, the police basically said no thank you, right? So the police at least had the wherewithal here in Canada to be like, no, that's bad and we're not going to do it. But down in the United States, they're like, yeehaw, let's go, stop and frisk 600,000 times a year. Like, woohoo, can't wait, right? And if you're doing that job and you're constantly doing that job and you know what that job is and that's how you get paid to do that job, like, you know what it is you are. And I don't think people should bullshit themselves anymore. Like, just because Brooklyn Nine-Nine was a funny show doesn't fucking mean anything. Right? Generation YME says, I saw four police cruisers come for one big drunk guy on the bus. Oh, yeah. Cops are big and tough. Yeah, big and tough. Tough guys. I know that, like, in my small town, like, there would be a First Nations person. Excuse me, guys. Sorry. Like, I remember I moved back to my small town, Manitoba town, for a year, and I saw, like, a First Nations guy drunk in a pizza place, and I was just like, okay, like, I lived in Toronto, like, some person drunk in an establishment is not a big deal, right? But somebody called the cops on them, and then the cops showed up, and what was so annoying is that, like, the guy is in the pizza parlor and his daughter is outside in a car acting as his designated driver, and she's just like, come on, man, like, just let me take my dad home. Like, yeah, he's drunk, but he wasn't unruly, he wasn't causing anybody any problems at all. Literally, the guy's just, like, in the corner just being like, just waiting for a pizza, straight up. Like, the difference between him and me was our skin color. Like, really. Like, I could have been a drunk guy sitting in the corner just being like, right? But because I'm white, right, and because he's First Nation, Somebody calls the cop, and the cop was very much like, okay, buddy, let's go. Into the car, into the drunk tank. And his daughter the entire time was just like, just let me take him home. She had the car there. She was not intoxicated. Like, the situation was completely and totally under control. The guy wasn't causing any problems at all whatsoever. But too fucking bad, right? Too fucking bad. The politicians are telling them to get tough on the TTC because media pressure on the mayor. Yeah. Like, don't pay any attention to the rampant homelessness. Don't pay any attention to the rampant poverty. Don't pay attention to the spiking inflation, right? Like, yeah, it's we just need more cops. We just need more cops. We got to keep taking money away from Social Security and give it to cops. That'll solve this problem. That's certainly not a snake eating its own tail, right? That's certainly not a snake eating its own tail. Like, that's a solution, right? You got the way to stop a bad guy with a gun is with a good guy with a gun, and we need more good guys with guns. That way we'll stop the crime before it even starts. That's right, we just need to get these homeless people off the streets. I mean, yeah, we do need to get these homeless people off the streets. You know what would be the best way to get homeless people off the streets? Give them homes. Oh, but John, won't that cause problems in the housing market? Yes. Yes, it will. I hope it does. I would love nothing more. Absolutely nothing more. If I could take a wand and just like wave a wand and just go into the populace, I would absolutely instantaneously collapse the housing market. And all of the people who cried about it, I would be like, yes, cry about your exploitive bullshit. Cry how your exploitive bullshit no longer works. Like, I would feel like the fairy who turned the prince into the beast. I'd be like, you're a dick. You're a monster now. Deal with that shit. Learn how to love and treat people with dignity and respect. And if the beast was like, I don't like being a beast, I'd be like, I don't give a fuck. Like, I don't give a fuck at all. Go fuck yourself. And then I would leave. And they would all be like, meh. And I'd be like, haha. I don't give a shit. Like, fuck these psychos. Ugh. I'll meet you in Niagara Falls for the 2024 total solar eclipse. Almost 5 minutes in the path of totality. Wow. That's pretty cool, actually. Generation Y me, lots of the cops in my town are new to the job because all the old ones had to be fired for their racism. But these new cops, I feel, are just as racist. But maybe they hide it better. It's probably not racism is why they got fired. They probably got fired because they didn't want to pay them their pension. Like, that's probably what actually happened. Like, they're probably like, yeah, these guys who are up for their pension soon, and we're gonna have to pay them a whole lot of money in retirement, are racists. They're racist. Is people buying that? People buying that? Racist? Racists! They're racist. So we're gonna get rid of those guys, and then we're gonna hire a bunch of new guys at half the price and offer them no benefits whatsoever, but they're fascists, so they'll take it. Like, that's probably what really happened. Like, I don't think that cops are getting fired for racism. I think that cops are getting fired because we don't want to pay them. That's the truth. Ligon Disease says, I was at the Defund the Police rally at City Hall yesterday. It was only 30 to 40 minutes. And later I saw a brief segment of us on CP24. Wow, CP24 showed up. Wow, I'm actually impressed by that. The media usually doesn't show up to this shit. Like, I'm impressed that the news media is actually showing up and even bothering to take out a camera and do anything. And I'm even more impressed that there was even a brief segment. Like, that's actually a pretty massive step up from what usually has been happening. My experience is that no media shows up whatsoever. And it doesn't matter how many people you have. Like, you literally could have like 1,000 people and the media just will not cover it. Like, that's how we roll. And so if you were at a rally at City Hall about that, and there was any media and you actually made it onto television, that's a huge step up Like massive, massive, massive step up from what I have seen and experienced. So maybe there are people in the news media that are recognizing that, oh, we actually do need to report on things and actually talk to people who have a different opinion. Or else we'll just fall into this cascading bullshit that's around us all the time, and we'll just essentially be propagandists. But, like, I do think that there was a gathering of leftist minds, some like high level, like Noam Chomsky level leftists coming together to talk about Julian Assange and a free Julian Assange, and I listened to it, and I was really like, oh yeah, man, like, if I was a journalist living in this environment, I would constantly be terrified that I was just going to get picked up. Like, that's what they did to Julian Assange. Like, think about what they did to Julian Assange. They took a guy who didn't even leak it. He literally just published the leak. He took information that was given to him by whistleblowers, right? And he published it on his website. And the Americans, he's an Australian for fuck's sake, the Americans are trying to indict him under American law, which, again, he's not an American citizen, for the crime of revealing their war crimes, for publishing their war crimes. If I was a journalist, I would think twice about wanting to actually report on things that would be anti-imperialist, right? I would think twice. And the idea that Julian Assange has been, like, in isolation for 15 years now. Like, the CIA, we have CIA reports about how they've been trying to assassinate him. Like, for real. And you're telling me that journalists are, like, gung-ho to be journalists? That's why everybody's a stenographer now. That's why people are basically like, what did the State Department say? That is uncritically the truth. Because they know what will happen to you. You're going to get picked up like Assange. Right? Kinker says the opposite done to me as a minority. When I was a teenager, I got in trouble. 911 were called. The black cop wanted to smash my head and arrest me. The white cop stopped him and took my info. Yeah, but once you become a cop, right? Like, I think that, like, the class dynamic matters more than the racial dynamic. Once you become a cop, you that's your identity. That's who you are. There's no race solidarity. There's none of that. Right? They don't have class solidarity. They don't have race solidarity. They're cops. They have solidarity with themselves, and that's it. So, like, maybe the white cop was like, no, don't beat that. We don't need to deal with that. And it's as simple as that. Oh, and it's definitely not enough, Ligondazy, but it's a step up, is what I'm saying. Like, it indicates at least a shift in how the media is interacting with protests that exist. That they're at least acknowledging they exist and showing them in any capacity whatsoever. And I really do think, like, a lot of these guys, like, I imagine there are probably newsrooms that are like, oh shit, like, look what's going on in the UK and France. Like, we should probably pay attention to that shit that's actually happening here. Right? I would be okay with using landlord tiers as my primary water source. Amazing. Anybody know if Trudeau actually did any good at the premier meetings? No. The premier meetings are about privatizing healthcare. And Trudeau's been pretty upfront about that. Like, he's not talking about how we need to make sure this is in the national interest. We need to make sure that healthcare remains a national thing. Like, he's very much like, we're going to use innovations to innovate the innovation. And it's privatization. They're going to privatize. And that's what they're going to do. Generation, they were super racist. There were 2 official reports in the same year on the racism of cops in my town. Maybe they didn't get fired for that, but there was an old cop that was straight up like, yeah, I'm racist, to a researcher in one of the reports. Dude, imagine being, like, so racist that you're just like, you don't even care about how racist you are. You, like, know it's going to lose you your job, and you're just like, what? You know what? You know, this is what all of this libertarian free speech shit is, by the way. I should have the free speech to be able to use the N-word when I want. I think that it's right that we should be able to denigrate other people of color. Absolutely. That's my freedom. That's free speech. Your phone died. John, did you answer my question? Good evening. I don't remember your question, Eric, but I'm here. I'm queer. I don't want any more bears. I'm not queer, by the way. I just think that that's a funny Simpsons reference. That's all. Adam, good to see you, Adam. Good cop, bond cop. Yeah. Dude, cop propaganda is now that I'm deeper into this communist thing, I see cop propaganda for what it is. And it's always obvious now. I can't not see it. Even stuff like Paw Patrol. I'm just this cop propaganda, man. The cops are here to help. Yeah, Paw Patrol here to save the day. If you're a person of color and become a cop, you're done. You're out. You join the Klan. The 5 men who beat the young black man showed the public how the black community sees cops that are black. Yeah. No, that was yesterday. That was yesterday, Eric. I was unable to stream yesterday. And I did not. And I tried to go to sleep. I have not been sleeping well. It's just I've been feeling oddly unsettled. That would be the word that I would use. Oddly unsettled. So, such is life. Such is life. We all keep going to work. Communist Party USA, it's going to take a mass movement. Let's face it, while damaged, the ex-president remains a force. The magma faction of the ruling class and a big chunk of the broader right-wing public still support him. This is Trump. Of course, it's possible Trump might be replaced by a DeSantis or someone else. But know this, whoever becomes MAGA's public face, and possibly the next president, we should never underestimate the danger they represent. As our party's program points out, what's at play here is a grab for control by one section of the capitalist class over all sections and over society. That's what January 6th was all about. Yeah, absolutely, dude. Absolutely. I'm not going to read this whole thing. As you can see, this is a real, oh my God. They're going through everything. Cold War 2.0. Right? Hawks. Ukraine. China. Building the party. Right? But it is getting to the point now that, I genuinely think if you're voting liberal, conservative, NDP, Democrat, Republican, you're a dupe. You're just a dupe. You might as well just be, I don't know, you might as well be voting for Cthulhu or Voldemort. Literally. I don't know. I like Cthulhu's domestic policies over Voldemort's domestic policies. Oh, dude, we had a huge thing about the Chinese balloon. Chinese balloon. It's so fucking stupid. This is how stupid we are. This right here. Just that we are this dumb. Click, click. They have been saying that for decades now. I can't believe them. Who's been saying what? But the Communist Party of the USA? I mean, they've been right. And in response, UK health workers stage biggest NHS strike in history. Nurses and paramedics have been striking separately since last year, but thousands downed tools together in England on Monday, ahead of a week of disruption in Britain's health service. Why are they striking? Nurses argue their strike is to preserve the profession, which they say many are abandoning in favor of more lucrative jobs. We're already on our knees. It's only going to get worse because more and more people will leave the profession, says trainee nursing associate Victoria Busk, who works on a trauma ward at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Birmingham, central England. She added that a single nurse was doing the job of 3. Others argue that the understaffing issues posed a risk to patients. Every time you go on a shift, it's dangerous due to low staffing, says Angela Unif on a picket line outside Queen's Medical Centre in Nottingham, also in central England. And this is all on purpose. This is all on purpose. that underfunding and cutting funding and destroying the health services is done completely 100% on purpose. And again, anyone who thinks otherwise is a total fucking dupe. Like, it's this absolute pride in oh, they just need to tough it up. It's the pride of individualism, of just like, oh, they're just complaining, they're just being weak, they just need to work harder, grind set. That then someone will take notice and promote them, right? Like, it's just like the stupidest possible arguments being used to justify the overt destruction of a public sector that, like everything else, relies on stability and needs an appropriate amount of funding in order to be stable. And like, you're basically asking people, yeah, go take a job in a shitty field where you're treated like trash constantly for low pay. Like, what better way to absolutely destroy it? And then say, well, you know what the solution is? You know what the solution actually is? It's to privatize it. That's the real solution. Certainly don't nationalize it and increase funding. You know, certainly don't do that. No, whatever you do. You know what would really help this out is if we inserted a worthless capitalist in here. A worthless capitalist who didn't do any extra work but sucked away a lot of labor. That would absolutely help this a lot better. And there's just a ton of gullible rubes in the society that are just going to be like, yeah, you know what? Why don't we give it a try? What's the worst thing that could happen? And of course, what's the worst thing that can happen? From Barron's. The baby boomer retirement crisis is here. Why the richest generation is struggling. Americans born in the post-war boom are entering their golden years. Despite the financial success of their careers, a disturbing number aren't prepared for the financial challenges ahead. They should just have less avocado toast, right? They should just have less avocado toast, right? That's the solution, obviously. Just drink less coffee. You know, those Starbucks coffees, they add up, you know. Elizabeth Boatwright planned to be retired by now. After all, she and her husband Frank saved diligently for decades and seemed on track to hit their financial goals. But the couple's plan didn't include Frank, a former social worker, developing dementia 2 years ago, or budget for his caregiving bills of $5,000 to $6,000 a month. So 72-year-old Elizabeth is still working 2 12-hour shifts a week as a chaplain at a local hospital and filling in at the local children's hospital wherever she can. Once the couple's nest egg shrinks to less than a year's work of caregiving costs, Boatwright says she plans to give up her paid work and care for Frank herself. It's hard. The savings are dwindling, says Boatwright, who has a side business helping others with life transitions and financial planning. Her current situation juggling work and Frank's needs is definitely exhausting, she says. Yet the prospect of giving up her paycheck and watching their savings shrink is even more daunting. Boatwright is among the countless baby boomers who, despite representing the wealthiest U.S. generation in history, are facing down the prospect of running out of money in retirement. That includes even some of those who've long considered themselves comfortably middle class and who have dutifully socked away life savings throughout their careers. Their retirement savings spoilers range from medical issues to forced retirement to spiraling debt and beyond. The median nest egg for a family headed for someone age 60 to 65 with household income of $71,000 to $126,000 was about $150,000 according to 2019 data from the Employee Benefit Research Institute, or EBRI. For those with incomes in the top quartile, making more than about $126,000, the median retirement savings balance grows to $535,000, an improvement, but certainly not a guarantee for funding a retirement that could span 20 years or more. Those savings are up against potential costs that can make quick work of retirees' balances. Healthcare expenses for an average retired couple could hit $315,000 before factoring in long-term care, according to Fidelity. A private room in a nursing home averages $108,000 a year. Overall, more than 40% of those aged 60 to 64 are at risk of experiencing a shortfall in retirement savings, according to EBRI, which includes factors such as home equity and long-term care costs in its simulations. Most people don't understand how much it takes to retire, says Frederick Rapina, a retired police officer turned financial planner who founded Opta Financial, who calls long-term care a middle-class killer. What's more, he says, retirement plans were oversold as the way you would be able to retire. Of course, a savings shortfall isn't a guarantee that retirees will end up destitute. Medicaid and Social Security offer important safety nets. Indeed, 40% of older Americans rely on Social Security benefits to cover more than half of expenses. Family and friends often help out, and retirees tend to course correct as their savings are depleted. But avoiding disaster still leaves many boomers with a retirement that doesn't resemble the one in those soft-focus commercials for financial services firms, and with a host of potentially difficult choices ahead. The majority of individuals aren't going into retirement with enough assets, said Stacey Francis, a certified financial planner and head of Francis Financial. There is no room for error. The latest generation of retirees and near retirees face a more difficult funding challenge than many of their predecessors. A larger share of previous generations had pensions, providing them with a stream of lifetime income that, in concert with Social Security, acted as a safety net. In the 1970s, the last time inflation took this type of bite out of savings, virtually all full-time workers had pensions. Today, that share is less than 15%. While increased access to work-based plans such as 401ks and 403bs has improved the retirement prospects for many, the shift towards these do-it-yourself options does have pitfalls. They place a heavy burden on employees to choose the right investments, and as people move into retirement, manage the process of turning those investments into a steady flow of income. The distribution of outcomes has gotten better for some folks, but I'm worried that on the tail end, the bad things that can happen has increased, said David Blanchet, head of retirement research at PGIM, on the shift towards 401ks. Some of the bad things are already popping up, as the end of a long bull market leaves behind losses in once popular investments, ranging from crypto to technology stocks. I run across individuals who've been managing their own money because in the past couple of years, you could do no wrong. The market declined and money running out spurs conversation, said Danielle Beasley, a financial planner at 20 Concierge Wealth Management. It's the biggest transition in individuals' lives, from being money-making machines to having responsibility for a big pile of money and needing to manage it. Dealing with debt. In the past, most retirees carried very little debt, but that is changing. In 2019, more than half of families headed by someone 75 or older had debt, compared with less than a third in 1992, according to EBRI. While mortgages accounted for about 30% of retiree debt, the incidence of credit card debt has also risen for this age group. What's more, the median debt burden is higher for Black and Hispanic families, contributing to the racial wealth gap that exacerbates retirement security concerns for people of color. In the case of David Parker, 58, it was credit card debt that nearly derailed his retirement plans. We were in dire straits, living paycheck to paycheck and working overtime just to keep going, says Parker, who has 6 adult children. Parker, a police officer, attended a retirement session with Opta Financial's Rapina, an eye-opening experience that led him and his wife to pay off their high-interest credit card debt using a loan against Parker's retirement account. After ridding themselves of the 5-figure debt, the couple started maxing out their retirement contributions and sold their home near the D.C. suburbs to move further out in Virginia. Relocating slashed their mortgage payment by 2/3 and allowed them to get more space. This is the house I want to retire to, says Parker, who achieved that goal when he left the force at the end of the year. For those living in expensive locations, a strategic move such as the one the Parkers undertook can be a boon to the household budget. Still, Rapina says, it's important to factor in property taxes and the location of friends and family, who can be an important source of emotional and caregiving support. I'm so glad we're hearing about the success stories of cops. Huh? Don't you love that? How we're hearing about the success stories of cops? How about we're hearing about the people who are actually being thrown into the streets? How about that? We're going to hear about them? We're going to hear about how the system absolutely are abandoning huge sections of the populace? No, we're going to hear about successful cops. That's what we're going to hear about. Still, relocation isn't always possible. Well, at least they're fucking admitting it. That's nice. Sometimes it's like the fucking equivalent of like, I retired at 30 with this one simple trick. I just took all my daddy's money and retired with it. Sandy Eng, 69, nice, had plans to bolster her savings by selling her home in the Los Angeles area and retiring to a cheaper coastal city. But after her son fell sick and her elderly uncle needed caregiving help as well, the move was off the table. That meant Eng would have to continue working. An option she is lucky to have. Yeah, so fucking lucky, eh? A 2021 paper by researchers at the Schwartz Center for Economic Policy Analysis at the New School found that nearly a third of middle-class workers 55 or older, those in the middle 40% of the income bracket, were forced to leave the workforce involuntarily between 2010 and 2018. Even among those in the most prosperous 10% of the income bracket, 30% of older workers were forced into early retirement. If you retire at 62 instead of 66, it can be devastating, PGIM's Blanchette says. You could have done all the right things, saving for 30 to 40 years, and then something beyond your control happens, and you can't get back into the labor force. Man, it'd be so good if we had, I don't know, Social Security, right? So some kind of social safety net, you know? Maybe universal health care. Medical issues are to blame for many of those earlier than expected retirements. And for those forced to bow out before they qualify for Medicare at 65, the problems can compound quickly. Someone who retires at age 60 has 5 years where they have to get private health care policy that can easily run $1,000 a month, says financial planner Francis. Health issues absolutely can be a time bomb in even the most robust retirement plan. Perhaps the most difficult retirement expense to plan for and fund is long-term care, which includes nursing homes and in-home caregivers. It's also one that every retiree should consider. Almost half of Americans receive some type of long-term care paid over their lifetime, according to the Urban Institute. And in the case of those who don't get paid care, a family member may step in to help, bringing its own set of complications, such as endangering the next generation's ability to save for their own retirement. Those with a mid-sized nest egg can find themselves in a particularly difficult spot if they haven't budgeted enough for care, says Blanchette. If you have $5 billion, you can go to a nursing home for a few years. If you have no money, Medicaid pays for it, he says. If you're in the middle, you risk depleting your assets. Neither the financial service industry nor the government offer an easy answer to protect against this risk. Most advisors now recommend getting long-term care insurance in your 40s, well before most people are closely stress testing their retirement portfolios. Some advise purchasing a low-cost annuity to create a guaranteed lifetime income stream. And the best and simplest way to help with these late-in-life costs is to wait until 70 to claim Social Security. Locking in 124% of the benefit you would be at the full retirement age of 67. The baby boomer retirement crisis isn't something with a simple, overarching solution. I mean, yeah, it is. Like, provide health care, like, fuck over the billionaire class, like, fucking stop pretending like there aren't solutions. But advisors say understanding and planning for the reality of the costs and obstacles ahead is a giant step in the right direction. Individualism. Forget about collective solutions to issues we're all going to face, getting old and dying. Right? Forget about a collective issue that we're all universally facing as a people together, right? Everybody gets old, everybody dies. Should have a collective solution to it? No. Individualism, plan it yourself, get fucked. Boatwright notes that even with her background in helping others plan for their futures, she was unprepared for the scope of her husband's caretaking bills. It's an all too common scenario, she says. Boomers are caught unaware, which is why we keep voting against universal healthcare systems. Like, I'm kind of with you here, Cotton. Like, oh darn, the people who did everything they could to put themselves in this situation against all advice from their own children are now like, oh, what am I gonna do? Oh, money's pretty tight, you know. Yeah, like you keep voting against it. America's literally the only country in the developed world that doesn't have a universal healthcare system. And it's just like, bro, like, it's this worship of the self. You do it yourself, and if you ask for a handout from the government, then you're weak. You're weak, and you don't want to be weak. The worst possible thing is to be weak. Dude, I'm just like so looking for, one payment to Ukraine would have been enough to pay for universal health care and forgive student debt. Absolutely, Isaac. Good to see you, by the way, Serge. Like, I know that it's brutal for me to say, and I understand, right? I understand how brutal this is for me to say, but I'm going to absolutely fucking say it, and I'll keep saying it until I'm living in the world where this is true, that things will be better when the boomers are gone. Articles like this are simply the breadcrumbs along the path for us to look at and go, oh, look, a generation of lead-filled, dim-witted, heavily propagandized losers are complaining about the problem they themselves obviously created, even though their own children are screaming at them to, like, hey, maybe vote for something that will be good for everyone. No, that's a handout from the government. If you get a handout from the government, then you're a terrible person. And we should have bailed out those banks, though. It was a super good idea to bail out those banks, absolutely. Like, when it's a corporate handout, everyone's like, yeah, that's great, too big to fail. For sure, absolutely. But if you, like, give a homeless person $1, they're just going to spend on alcohol, you know. Like, we deserve exactly what we get. These boomers deserve exactly what they get. Like, I'm so depleted of sympathy at this point. I'm literally just like, you guys could have, like, literally listened to anyone. Like, literally taken a look at anyone else in the world and just been like, oh, yeah. Like, and forget about one payment to Ukraine. Like, the CIA budget. Like, take the money away from the obvious fraud, grifting, lying, psychopathic lunatics and use it for something that's actually worthwhile. Like, literally. My prof said the private hospital she was in had staff who were all part-time in a private clinic and working full-time in a public hospital. I believe it. They make more part-time in private care than they do full-time in public care, but private care will never give them full-time because capitalism, yeah. And yet, we're still just going to go to work. Yep. Like, if Valentina, don't know if I've ever seen you here before. Good to see you. If boomers can't retire, there's no hope for Gen Z and millennials. Don't know how Canadians will be able to retire. Such a gloomy outlook. Well, and what do they think what do they think the outcome of all that's going to be? Like, do you genuinely think that, like, millennials and Gen Z are just going to put their head down and silently march to 60? Like, do they actually think that that's what's going to actually happen? Like, the only thing that's keeping, like, a major stuff from happening are these people. Like, for real. And what does the political class think is going to happen when these people die? And the only people who are left are people who are like, so this capitalism thing, eh? Not so much, right? Yeah, ODSP certainly doesn't cover enough. No, it's the MAID system for people on ODSP, dude. That's the solution. For people on ODSP, it's literally like, medically assisted dying. You can just go die. We'll even have a doctor help you. It's the passive-aggressive nature of the system entails people to end up homeless and suggests it's their fault. No, they don't even suggest it. They outright state that it's your fault. Like we are a grifting society. We love grifters. We elevate grifters above everyone else. That if you are a grifter in this society, you're going to do very, 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 very well. And the more belligerent and childish you can be while being a grifter, like Kevin O'Leary, for example, the better off you're going to do, right? You're going to be like, oh, this guy can be the real, like, the Simon of the group, right? The real hitting him with the downbeat comment, right? Because that's a popular thing that we love. We love it when we watch people shit on other people, right? But like people like Elon Musk. Elon Musk is going to go down in history as one of the greatest grifters ever. Because his entire life is a grift. And literally the guy is born a billionaire thanks to his dad's slavery mines. Steals credit for everyone else's inventions. Pretends like he's like a real life Tony Stark. And then grifts everybody around him into giving him a ton of money for projects that are dead ends. Meanwhile, holding the society back in significant ways. Like, California was looking at what China was doing with high-speed rail and going like, oh, fuck yeah, let's just do that. Right? Who convinced them not to? Elon Musk. Why? Car tunnels! That's the solution to all our problems. Forget about moving millions of people with high-speed rail. We should get everybody a car and get those cars into tunnels. And people went for it because we're stupid and we love grifters. We love them, dude. Like, take a look at Donald Trump. Like, fucking we love it. We can't stop ourselves. Like, we're very, very dumb and we're going to absolutely pay a high price for it. Like, it's going to be massive, the price that we pay for it. And it's not going to be like a television show where the grifter is outed and then something bad happens to them, right? This is real life. What's going to actually happen is that the grifter will be outed and then he'll just be like, okay, I'm off to my mansion. And we'll all be like, well, we didn't care for that so much. Well, some of us will be like that. Huge other sections will be like, oh, wow, he's so good, so powerful and smart. Like, it's this absolute simping love for obvious abusers and grifters. That just seems creepy and weird. We love it, though. We absolutely love it. We can't stop ourselves. I had a boomer telling that Trump had many successes, and every time I bring up data, he always ignores the data. Yeah, of course. They're flat earthers, dude. Yeah. Just cut taxes and deregulate. That'll be fine. Yeah, just keep cutting the taxes. That'll be fine. I'll take the money and I'll use it for sure, and that's a thing I'll do for sure. Some of these guys literally must have just drunk lead. You know? Like, literally just are like, I love lead. Gulp, gulp, gulp. Lead, gulp. Like, there's just no other explanation for some of this shit. Like, I think the best way to run a society is to give all the money to this guy. But we gotta make sure the government's held accountable. We gotta make sure that there's a Congress, a Senate, a Supreme Court, and make sure we have a big, robust media system and all of that definitely works. Yeah, we gotta have all these checks and balances, and the presidency shouldn't have too much power either. And all these checks and balances, but all the money for one guy. Yeah, one guy should have all the money for sure. Average American. Like, tell me I'm wrong. Like, the average American genuinely thinks that, yeah, we should have power distributed and we have a Congress and there should be, the entire country should hold elections and have individual seats, and not only once, but twice. There should be a Congress and a Senate, both elected to ensure checks and balances, and things are passed in the House and that gets passed to the Senate, and there's big discussions, and then the presidency is also elected by everybody, and you have all of this, and then there's also a Supreme Court where there's this whole other thing and these four spheres of power, and then you have the news media all talking about it so we can all see it and constantly be discussing, and all of this is constant so that there's the power doesn't get consolidated, but we should definitely give one guy all the money. That's a good idea. He earned it. Like, welcome to America, man. Lula once said, "I never thought that giving bread to the poor would generate so much hatred from the elites." Yeah, of course. No, I mean, these people are psychopaths. Like, and this is something that I have really come to notice about communists and socialists throughout history. With some exceptions here and there, but for the most part, I think that communists really underestimate, and leftists generally really underestimate, the psychotic, psychopathic nature of the ruling class. Like, liberals certainly don't see it at all. That, like, liberals will be the ones like, oh, I think it's just mainly people are kind of dumb, right? Or, you know, maybe self-centered, but, like, not directly evil or malicious. And I'm like, nah, bro. These people are, like, drinking baby blood, raping children evil. Like, you are crazy wrong to underestimate the psychotic nature of these people. And, like, they literally cannot stomach the idea of a person just having food or having shelter. That idea is so offensive to them, because it would mean that things are nice and people aren't living in desperation or suffering, which is their goal. They want people to suffer. They've, like, stated it. They've stated it outright, because making us suffer means that we'll accept worse wages. So that means they get to pay us less to do the same work. That's their whole ethos. And they're, like, openly saying it. They're just telling you that that's what they're doing. And yet liberals are just like, no, you know, it's just, you know, it's hard to run a society. Yeah, at least there's made now. Exactly. Centaura says, I'm 24. The only thing that stops a France is the fact that I knew the pig owners are still an issue for the long term. I don't understand that comment at all, dude. Like, the pig owners are still an issue for the long term. Anyway, Eric, that was Canadian when I was talking about, but conservatives are all the same. Yeah, I don't see the difference from the conservatives across the globe. No, like, if you are a rich person who owns property, right? Like, fuck you, I got mine. Like, that's the long and short of the conservative ethos. That, like, the quote-unquote good conservatives are the ones who are, like, trying to tell you how to also fuck everybody over and steal as much resources as possible. Like Peterson, right? This is the good conservatives. Is the idea that, like, yeah, it's totally fine to eradicate entire species and steal all their resources. It happened so long ago. And the guy goes to the same church as I do. He was the same guy who thought the reason the Cuban doctors are so poor is because of communism, when I suggest they just lift the embargo. Tell him to read his Bible. Nah, don't try to fucking deal with these guys rationally, dude. Like, if he's going to church, you tell him to read his fucking Bible. Like, tell him that he should actually care about his own Christ. Like, I'm so sick and tired of these fake-ass Christians. These fake-ass phony Christians who are just like, yeah, I go to church and I love Jesus, but the poor are a problem. Fuck you. Like, fuck you. There's a reason I don't support these religions. There's a reason I don't go to church. There's a reason why I think Christians are a fraud. There's a reason why I don't respect Christians. Like, sorry if you're listening to this and you're a Christian, I don't respect you. Like, period, flat out. Abandon your Christianity just like your Christians did. Right? There's no such thing as a Christian. It's just a made-up bullshit thing. You're just clutching onto your stupid book or your cross or all this kind of stuff. There's no institution that gives a fuck. Nobody cares about this Christ person. Right? And if you think that that's bullshit, too fucking bad. Right? Your churches don't give a shit about Christ. The Christian followers don't give a shit about Christ. And the people who, the vanishingly small minority of Christians who might actually care about Christ are not going to confront any of these people. You're not going to actually say you don't give a fuck about Christ. You're not going to actually say that. We all know that's true, so it's just a little club you're in. Right? Like, I'm just so fucking over it. I'm so fucking over pretending like there is such a thing as a Christian. Like, Either you care about Christ, but you're too spineless to actually confront anybody, or you're a fucking hypocrite and a liar. Those are your only two options. So I'm just going to abandon the whole fucking thing. It's just completely embarrassing. That the fact that there are these mega churches, the fact that there are people walking around with little T's on. Yeah. I was talking too much shit about the church. They disconnected me. The church was just like, can't have that. Give your money to the mega church. Joel Osteen requires a bigger boat. We need a bigger church to keep the poor out of during times of crisis. Jesus will love you if you do. I tell you what, fellow Christians and followers of God, if you reach deep into your pockets and reach deep down into the pockets of the Lord and you pull out even a single dollar and you send it down to the address down below, Jesus Christ will give unto you blessings and riches like you've never seen before. And every dollar you give to the church today, every dollar you give to the church today will come back to you tenfold. And if not in this lifetime, then in the next. You just pull out an envelope and put it down with postage and send it on forward, and Jesus Christ will bless you. In the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Thank you, Jesus. I can see. There's a woman. There's a woman out there by the name of Esther. Good biblical name, Esther. I can feel in your heart. I feel your heart now. I'm connected to you by the power of the Holy Spirit. I feel you, Esther, that you're full of doubt. I'm here to tell you, Esther, you need to put aside those doubts and put your faith in the word of the Lamb, and Jesus Christ will come into your heart, Esther, and when you send that dollar to us, Esther, you're going to be filled with the love of Jesus Christ. I promise you. Amen, Esther. Thank you so much for your contribution. You should be like Esther too. You should be like Esther too. Be sure to donate. Jesus loves you. Like, anybody could fucking do this. You just need to fucking ramble away. Like, just say some stupid, crazy Jesus Christ shit. And then suddenly you're like a man of God. Right? Suddenly you're a fucking important person. Like, just imagine if, like, Ben Shapiro started talking that way. Can you imagine? Like, just imagine if, like, Steven Crowder just started talking that way. Like, Peterson, they just all start talking that way. Like, it's just fucking unbelievable. Doug Dimmadome. Doug Dimmadome, Doug. I forget what he says. It's Doug Dimmadome something. Dimmadome, Dum-Dum. It's another D word. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, don't forget that Chris Hedges is a pastor. Yeah. Like, there's always the exception. Like, Chris Hedges literally wrote a book called Christian Fascism. Like, he's like one single guy actually throwing the ball against the wall. Everybody knows dollars is close to godliness. You could pull it off and occasionally add in some marks. Yeah. Like, incidentally, good opportunity to say to all of you, maybe think about donating. Huh? Right? There are people in the world who are donating money to lunatic Christians. There are people in the world who are donating money to frauds outright. So maybe donate to me. Command Genius, I wasn't expecting the Christian hate. Oh yeah, bud. It happens. It fucking happens. My background is evangelical Christianity, right? Fundamentalist Christianity. I know who these people are. And like, I'm sure that there are people who are trying their best, right? But the fucking hypocrisy just kills me, dude. Just like literally people who their book says, give your money to the poor. Their Christ says, on many occasions, repeatedly and over again, sell your possessions, give your money to the poor. And these people turn around and say, these guys just need to work harder. Eat a dick. They don't care about their Christ. Like, they don't care about their Christ. It's that simple. Closed mouths don't get fed. Good pitch, at least. I don't understand the comment at all, sub. Sorry, bud. But John, it has to be done voluntarily. Yeah, that's the only way good things can happen, right? It has to be my choice. I'm the one that matters. My choice is what really matters. It's just arrogance. That's all it is. Like, forget about what Christ said, right? Forget about what your God told you, right? Like, it's got to be me that chooses, and I got to choose how the money is spent. I got to make sure that they're not wasting it. I got to make sure that they're not wasting it, you know? Like, they could just go buy cigarettes and booze with it, you know? They could just waste that, you know? Like, literally, these people say this, and then they just go glug some whiskey or something to smoke a cigar or whatever. Yeah, but I earned that, you know? I worked really hard for that. Like, you made a pitch for donations. Yeah. I'm not happy about that, by the way. I wish I didn't have to. I wish I wouldn't, frankly. Like, this whole, like, commodifying myself. And YouTube keeps telling me about how, like, oh, you could do subscriptions. Get money from people this way. Get money from people this way. Sell them this. Sell them that. I'm just like... Like, I actively despise it. I hate it. I hate that it's something I have to do. I hate it as part of the process at all. But it is part of the process. And I see that you eat the Lord's grain and yet critique the Lord. Curious. Do you want to read an article where my church argues? I mean, already no. Like, I don't care what these institutions have to say. Like, they should give the money to the poor. Like, that's the only way I will ever respect even one of these institutions. Even one of these people. The only one I will ever respect is the person who goes, Christ says give money to poor. Poor. Money. Poor. Done. Until then, fuck off. I don't care what they think. Like, I don't care what they think. Yeah, I wish I could just make art. Yeah, make things that look cool. What's wrong with that, right? What's the problem there? Like, what's so fucking annoying is that, like, food and shelter is not, like, expensive. Like, we've got all the shelter, so it's already built, right? Food is not actually that expensive. Like, unless you have parasites in the system the way that we do. Like, we could be living so much cooler than this. Life could be so much easier than this. By a lot. By a significant amount. And yet we've just decided that this is the way to do it. What's wrong with commodifying your platform? If people find value in it, they'll consume. Because I'm not a commodity. I'm a human being trying to crack open this fraudulent society. Thank you, Generation Y Me. I do appreciate it, bud. I really do. Thank you so much. Karl Marx talks about this. Capitalism commodifies us. We turn into commodities. And the relationship that I want to have with people and the relationship that I want to have with the world is not as a commodity, but as a human being. I don't want to be viewed as something to be consumed. I don't want to be viewed as an entertainment. I don't want to be viewed as some kind of product, as a brand. I want to be a human being. I want to live in the world as a human being. I want to lie in the grass and stare at the clouds and pick fruit off the trees. I want to live a simple life. I feel you so much, Anemone. I feel you so much. I just want to exist. I didn't ask to be born. Why can't I enjoy my time here? Or at least, why can't we build something here? Why can't we build institutions here to create something that we know the next iteration, the next generation of humans will come into and have a better time? That's why there's so much despair in this society. That's why there's so much despair in this society, because we know that's not going to happen. That if human beings have any task, if there is any meaning to be derived from this existence, it's to ensure that the generation that follows behind at least has the same experience. That you don't make things worse for them. And if you can make it better, then you should. And we all intrinsically know that that's not happening. We all intrinsically understand. We might not have ever articulated it or heard the idea, but we all know in our heart and in our stomach and in our balls, in our genitals, we all know that the generation that's coming up behind us is completely fucked over. We know that that's the truth. And that's why there's so much despair. We're not despairing ourselves. We're not in grief for ourselves. We're in grief for our children and for their children. Because we know what we've done. We know who we are. And some of us are so incapable of acknowledging it that we have to project that outward into something else and fall into obvious delusion. Like climate change denialists are exactly like this. They can't acknowledge how badly things are going to be for the next iteration, and so they have to just fall into delusion. Because to accept the truth is too much. Ashley Romek, do you think people will still choose undesirable jobs if there's no financial incentive? Absolutely. Absolutely. I actually make the argument that I think people will do undesirable jobs even more. Because instead of doing those undesirable jobs for people you've never met, who steal the vast amount of your surplus value to get barely enough to put food on the table, to live in this shitty society that's a complete inversion of what being a human being actually is, you would be providing for your community, for people you know. And frankly, there would be more people to do less work. Because we wouldn't have to be constantly subserviating ourselves to this absolutely worthless class of parasites in order to pay for base subsistence. Like, give people food and shelter, and suddenly you'll see what people actually care about. Like, there are so many jobs in this society that are pointless and stupid that only exist. Who's gonna choose sewer work over painting art? People who want a clean society with sanitation. Like, dude, I used to work in funeral services. You know why I don't anymore? Because it's utterly corrupt. Utterly corrupt. Like, people stealing from each other, back of house backstabbing, all that kind of crazy shit that you pretend like doesn't exist, but it's all because capitalism exists. And do you know what I would be doing if it wasn't like that? If it was just like, hey, John, you need a job? You know what I would be doing? I would be dealing with the dead. I continuously look into it. So don't you fucking tell me that no one's going to do that. Because people want a clean environment. And people want to feel proud about contributing to their society. And that work exists and it should be done, but guess what? It doesn't pay. You know why? Because the capitalists don't live there and they don't give a shit if your society is a shithole. They don't care at all. Because they live over here and they've got all the money. They don't give a fuck about you. Like, you know what it actually would take for the people making art to suddenly go, oh, we got to take care of the sewer? one back up. Like, people don't want to live in a society where it's covered in shit. Especially if there's, like, just an easy way to solve it. And because there's so many more available hands, because we're not wasting our time jacking off these worthless capitalists, then many hands make light work. And people will be like, well, I don't want to do it, but I will do it. And it's a good thing to do for everybody. Like, and the reason why you're struggling to understand it is because you live in an exploitive mindset, just like you revealed right here. Right? That you have internalized capitalist thought. You have internalized the exploitation of other people. That, oh, I'll just exploit someone. That's how you get ahead in a capitalist society. That's what you care about in a capitalist society, is the exploitation of other people and the theft of their surplus value. Like, that because you've internalized capitalism so much, you simply cannot imagine another world. And more or less, actually, you're just kind of self-reporting. If you ask me. Like, good to know you would watch other people clean up your shit for you. Lou, good to see you, bud. Good to see you. And, like, reality itself defies your position. Like, if the only thing that matters is money, the only thing that matters is financial incentive, then why are there people doing any volunteer work? Why is there any volunteer work happening whatsoever? If the only thing is financial incentive, then the existence of volunteer work, the existence of non-paying work, of doing things just for the good of your community, right? The very existence of that dynamic shows that that's false. Like, really obviously false. People do things all the time, constantly. Like the financial incentive is actually the aberration. It's actually the one that's out in left field. That we live in a society that has overwhelmingly propagandized us to believe that the only reason something should be done is for money, when that's the last reason that people do something. Like, people are not incentivized by money unless they have to be, which, by the way, is most of us. Like, you need to pay for food and shelter for some reason, even though everybody needs it. The funeral industry are terrible with their sleazy, overpriced costs, taking advantage of vulnerable people mourning. Yeah, that definitely happens. No, that definitely happens. There's all kinds of practices in the funeral home industry. Like, I came to realize in the funeral home industry that embalming as a practice is completely unnecessary. It exists exclusively to sell a product, to increase the cost of the funeral, and then B, is also kind of racist, because other faiths, so for example Muslims, they think that embalming is wrong, but embalming is required by law. So it's a scummy case of business people getting in bed with politicians in order to enact a policy that's against the interest of the public, as usual. My comments are not showing up on your side. You're not the only one to complain about that, Isaac. So I don't understand why it's happening today, but it is. So that is how it is. I think we need to implement a UBI first to see if that's the case. I am not against a UBI. Like, I'm not against a basic income. But I'll tell you that we all know exactly what would happen if everybody got a basic income. Like, if you got a basic income of, let's say, $2,000 a month, suddenly rent's $2,000. We all know that that's how that's going to go. Like, as long as the means of production and as long as rent is in the hands of the capitalist class, as long as the capitalists have their opinion heard at all for any reason whatsoever, then a basic income will fail. that if we implemented a basic income, suddenly, oh wow, look at all the inflation that's happening. Oh, that's what happens when you give free money out like that to poor people. If you give free money to rich people, no inflation. But suddenly you give out money to poor people and there's inflation everywhere. I guess that's just how economics works. Yep, that's right. Like, Galen Weston will triple prices overnight. He'll just jack prices and be like, "Oh, we're still gonna make money, you know. You know, inflation is a heck of a thing. Oh, by the way, we've got 15% profits this year. Yeah, inflation though, it's really tricky." Like, that's how gullible and stupid we are, by the way. That we're just like, yeah, inflation's tough, eh? It's a natural thing that's completely unavoidable. Wow, they're making more money than ever. Like, what do you think's happening? How did the Soviet Union sewer work done? Yeah, surely not slavery. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you, Isaac. They're just trying to keep us apart, Isaac. They're just trying to keep us apart. Keep on believing. Keep on believing. I don't know, dude. Sub, man. Let's not get into the landlord conversation. I'm too tired for that shit, dude. I don't want to be mean to you. We just met. I'm sure that you're thinking, like, I'm sure that you're trying to do what's best for everybody, bud. And honestly, man, I will say this, okay? That if your situation is like, I have a home or I'm renting a room in my house, or like even like I have a second property and I'm renting that second property, and it happened that way where like you inherited something, right? Circumstances fell into this thing that you just had this, and there's a family living there and you're trying to do what's right by people and all that kind of stuff, fine. Okay? When I get talking about landlords, I'm talking about BlackRock. I'm talking about people who have trillions of dollars of assets. I'm talking about people who view landlording as an investment and are happy to jack prices to fuck over people because I don't care if you're homeless. Like, that's what I'm talking about. I don't care about, like, you're like, well, I've got a basement suite and I'm gonna rent that. Like, okay, great. Super cool. Like, I'm way more concerned about like corporate landlords, people who are actively pursuing landlording as a business opportunity and do not give a fuck who they kill to do it. Like, that's what we're talking about. So if you're ever on this channel and I'm railing against landlords, it's not you, dude. Like, I don't give a shit about your little single property. I don't care at all. You do you. You do what you do. I'm sure you're doing well by it, okay? There are psychopaths who own thousands of properties who are jacking the price so that the average price for a rental is now $2,000 here in Toronto, and don't care if you die in the streets starving and homeless. So if you don't consider yourself to be like that, then we're fine. Live your life. Do your best. It's not working because it has to do with what I type. Yeah, if you think that there's like a buzzword or a keyword or something, Isaac, maybe try to like misspell it. Sometimes works. Or like split the word in two. Sometimes works. Like, just break it up. Break it apart. Yeah, keep in mind that there's a difference between a petite bourgeoisie versus bourgeoisie, and landlords are the same. I just don't, like, there's no reason to alienate some guy that owns a property. Like, for real. Like, there's just no reason to even bring them into the conversation. There's just no reason to do it. It's so pointless. Like, there are literally, like, massive conglomerate corporations who are rendering millions of people homeless so that they can hold on to thousands of empty properties. Like, I don't see the allure of choosing to invest in properties and create scarcity. It's a family farmhouse. Exactly, dude. Like, I know exactly the situation you're in, dude. Like, for real. I'm from rural Manitoba. Like, it's a family farmhouse. Like, I know exactly what the fuck you're talking about. I just don't give a shit. Like, great. So, please, sub. But from me to you. From my heart to yours. If you ever hear me going off on landlords, it's not you. You don't count. That's not what we're talking about. I'm literally talking about exactly the person you're describing. Choosing to invest into properties to create scarcity. Like, those people are evil. Like, evil is the word that we can use. Like, literally sitting on empty properties in order to create scarcity to jack up the price. And then creating a bunch of, like, Airbnbs and shit. Like, ugh. I tried misspelling it, rearranged the words, they're catching up. Isaac, man, you've piqued my curiosity, man. What is it you're typing? This is going to be some scathing, like, just crazy shit. You're going to put it out there and be like, whoa, Isaac, what the fuck? Holy cow. This is revolutionary. This kind of thinking has to be stopped at with any moment. That YouTube has to ban this. And then it'll turn out that you're just being like, I don't care for these landlords, you know? It'll be like the most banal shit. The more I think about it, the more I consider gifting it to the family. Just sentimental because I grew up there. Do it. I dare you. I dare you to do it. I dare you, sub. Absolutely. Like, you wanna talk about, like, what would Jesus do? That's exactly what Jesus would do. That he would just be like, do you need that house? Is that something that you require in your life? Is it important for you to have that? Does it really matter that much? And if it had that sentimental value, if it has that kind of lovely value to it, well, why wouldn't you want to take that sentimental value and then put a nice little bow on it and say, and then we gave it to a family? Like, what a beautiful way to tie that memory, that nostalgic, sentimental memory of your life into a lovely bow. It's a place you grew up in. You've got all these sentimental things. You've got positive value, and now you've got it, and you're at a crossroads. You can turn into a scummy shitlord. You can give it away. Give it away. I dare you. Interesting, they let me complain, but it won't let me say anything they don't like. Yeah, dude, chat's getting centered. Of course it is. Of course it is. I said it at the beginning of this. I just wish that YouTube would give us, like, I just wish it was naked. I just wish it was a naked list. Like, don't say this word. Here's the list of the words. Don't say this. This is what the algorithm is looking for. I just wish they'd do it. Like, but they don't. Everything's very much like, this is outside of our community guidelines. Well, why? Outside of the community guidelines. Okay, but, like, what did I say? I don't even know what I said to interfere with the community guidelines. It's like, this offended the community guidelines. But which community guidelines? Let's say misinformation. Oh, I spread misinformation? I don't want to spread misinformation. I want to tell the truth. And if I'm spreading something that's misinformation, I'd like to know what it is. Can you tell me what it is? You have violated the community guidelines. Okay, but you know how I did and when I did. Can I at least get a timestamp? Can you give me a timestamp on the video and I can look at it myself with this idea of misinformation, and then I can maybe, like, I'd like to change what that is. I don't want to spread misinformation. You violated the community guidelines. Okay, can I get an appeal? We've appealed it and you violated the community guidelines. Okay, but when? At what moment? What did I say? You have violated the community guidelines. Have a nice day. Click. I can get like 1 out of 10 on my messages through. At least I could check on your stream. The messages don't even have anything censorable in it. Yeah. I don't know why it's happening either, guys. Honestly, like, it seems utterly random to me. Like, for real. And it always has. It's never been, like, I don't know. What happens if I go top chat, then down to live chat, and then back to top chat, and then down to live chat? Maybe that'll do something. Hey, make sure to like the video, dude. Make sure you're liking the videos. Oh, what did I click on? Holy shit! I didn't mean to click on that. All right. Oh, well, sub, you know more about it than I do, bud. Good luck. Good luck. That's, I know, it's a house, right? It's a piece of property, so it's like a whole thing unto itself. But I bet the taxes is less than the rent. There are some YouTubers who went to great lengths to figure out the issue. What they have discovered, it was literally boils down to computer misunderstanding what the person said. Yeah, dude. Oh, content. See? That it's it. Content. You see how I'm being so tactful and diplomatic with sub? Huh? You see how here's a guy who in good faith made himself vulnerable in a communist chat, right? In a communist chat, admitted to being a landlord, right? Opened himself up to that kind of attack, and I feel like I was very soft gloves with him. Because I feel like we should extend the olive branch to people who find themselves in these sorts of situations, right? Life moves in peculiar and strange ways. Not everybody's out there hunting not everybody's a fucking killer, right? But it's in character, I'll tell you that. It's in character for sure. So I can't hate it, I guess. I just love the idea of YouTube just being like, no, you can't say that to poor little Stop. Poor little Stop, he's just trying really hard and doing his best out there. You can't say that to him. You know what it probably was? I bet you what happened. Okay, guys, here we go. Here's the new theory. New theory just dropped. Here it is. That Sub admitted to being a landlord. And in the algorithm, it went, oh, this guy's a landlord, so he's at a higher tier of people. That we, the algorithm, us capitalists, will be like, oh, there's a landlord in the chat, everyone. A landlord. Well, he's the most important person in the chat by far. Landlord Sub. Here you go. And then people started to talk to him, and they were like, no, you can't talk to the landlord. Landlord Sub is well above you. We need to protect people who are good, honest landlords from... I bet that's what happened. I bet the robots are just like, all power to the landlords. And if you try to shit on them, they're just like... No. Absolutely. I didn't see it. I don't know what you're talking about, Compton. Did you see it? It was harsh, but not a direct attack on Sub's character. Yeah, I can imagine it, Compton. That seems in character for you. Like, that's... Like, probably something rooted in theory that was about landlords. And if it offended Sub, you would be fine with that. Come on. We know it's true, Compton. We know it's true. Marcus, I'm dying laughing right now. I'm glad. We laugh, we cry. It's an emotional roller coaster. That's why you keep tuning in, people. That's why we all tune in. So that we can experience the roller coaster that is life together as people. Under the glorious eye of our Creator, Jesus Christ. Clips out of context. Hilarious clips taken out of context really don't make any sense without context. Context. Who wants fucking context? Oh my god. Let's run through it. Let's run through the articles. Have I already run through all my fucking articles? I don't want to read another article. We're mad at him for being a landlord, but would be fine if he sold it for capital. Bro, look, I already said it. I'm going to say it again. I literally don't give a shit about somebody who owns a piece of property. Like, I just don't. Like, it's just not... It's so outside the wheelhouse of what it is I try to accomplish. Like really. Like, I own a home, and I rent it to a single family at a reasonable rate. I'm not trying to cause them any problems. Great. Like, I just don't, like... I just don't care at all. It seems so, like... There's a pretty hefty gift tax imposed as income in the form of assessed property value. Look at Sub. He's trying to talk himself out of it. Right? He's trying to talk himself out of it. Yeah, you don't need to convince me, dude. Like I said, right? I don't have a horse in your race. That's all. I've offered you my opinion. I think it's right, but I care about BlackRock. Caitlin Johnstone is too beautiful. I can't pass her up. More evidence that the West sabotaged peace in Ukraine. Days after the war in Ukraine began, it was reported in the New York Times that President Vladimir Zelensky of Ukraine has asked the Israeli Prime Minister, Naftali Bennett, to mediate negotiations in Jerusalem between Ukraine and Russia. Good person to pick. You wanna... what, tanks? America sending tanks? We did talk about it briefly. I mean, Germany's sending Nazi tanks, so that's fun. Like, everybody's sending tanks. Canada's sending tanks. We're all being like, you know what would really help this situation out? Tanks. Probably not. Just gonna put that out there. That, like, someone needs to actually explain to me how this is gonna work out for the benefit of the Ukrainians, for the benefit of the Ukraine war. Like, how is it actually gonna work? How do you think it's actually gonna work out? So these guys are sending like 100 tanks. Canada's sending like a handful of tanks. America is sending some Abram tanks. How many Abram tanks? Let's find out. Abram tanks to Ukraine. How many tanks are we talking here? 31. Right? So you got what? 31 Abram tanks. So let's go crazy. Let's just go nuts. From all the numbers I've been seeing from all of these disparate sources, right? Yeah, Abrams are the real deal, though. The Russians have air superiority, dude. Like, you're just giving them a target. Like, can these things shoot down jets? Are these things good against missiles? Like, you got like a Ford F-150 with a gun on the end of it that the Ukrainians are not trained to use, rumbling across the battlefield, kicking up dust that you can see from miles away. We got, looks like 31 M1 Abrams tanks just rolling up to the front line there. Roger that. Can I get coordinate on that? Yep, that'll be breaker 4839484823444. Thank you. Please stand by. Looks like target hit. Roger that. Explain how that's not what's going to happen. Are they going to be stealthed? Are you going to put stealth? You going to put stealth tanks? The depleted uranium is very good against missiles, but no air assets could hit them until their tracks blow off. Why not? They're a big hunk of metal. And like Abrams take specialized training, which the Ukrainians don't have. This is all for show, and only 30% of the assets that are being sent to the Ukrainian front line are making it. That's by the State Department's own research. So literally, only 30% of these tanks are going to make it to the front line in the first place. The rest of them just go wherever, right? Who knows where this shit goes? And there's no accountability, there's no oversight. I just am it's not going to swing the war. I'm not, they're sending 300 tanks. Look, man, here is literally the only statistic you need to hear about how this war is going. Not that long ago, Putin mobilized 300,000 Russians. And yes, there was some difficulty, and yes, some of them fled, and yes, there was all the kind of stuff that you would expect to see during a mobilization process, right? Draft dodgers and the like. But by and large, those dudes went, right? 300,000 men. How many men did NATO recruit? How many men did NATO bring? Where's the mobile? Did the draft happen and I just missed it? How big a mobilization happened throughout NATO? Right? It's definitely going to improve bloodshed. That we can agree on. It's definitely going to make a splash. There's going to be some kind of splash one way or the other. They'll make headlines one way or the other. I think that's right. Which should have some international consequences. But like, what international consequences? Right? Yeah, how is this is not as if China was sending tanks to Mexico to fight on America's our border? Yeah, right? But like, I think the cat's out of the bag on that one, Marcus. Like, in terms of like international consequences, like, I think that the Americans and the Europeans, the West generally, have successfully isolated themselves over this incident on the international stage. That like, let's do it. Let's do it. You guys know where we're going. Google Maps. Google Maps. Google Maps. Time to map the Googles. Time to map the Googles. So this is where this is. Right? Russia, basically, if I carved a line here, you take this river, right? And then you just kind of keep going that way, and that's basically the battle line, right? Russia has this territory. There's Ukraine, right? This conflict has successfully isolated Europe, United States, and Canada, at least, on the world stage. That these three culprits, basically, are now being pushed out of the emerging international order, which is things like BRICS, which is an alliance between China, India, Saudi Arabia, Brazil, and Russia. That those powers have come together and formed an international trade alliance called BRICS, which is designed to sidestep the SWIFT banking system and get those countries, at least, away from the American dollar. And this Ukrainian crisis, even before the tanks, even before that, well before that, this crisis had really inspired this to be folded out with more rapidity. And it's very difficult to find any voice outside of Canada, the United States, Europe, and Australia that are going to be critical of this move at all. Outside of the international rules-based order, which is the SWIFT banking system and the IMF and these places, it's pretty well understood that we got to get away from these Americans. Like, these guys are crazy. These guys are fucking cray. And like, if the war in the Middle East didn't convince you, right? Like, internationally speaking, the war in the Middle East wasn't actually that convincing to the rest of the world. The Middle East is something of neutral territory as far as like China, India, Russia, South America, even Africa are concerned. The Middle East is kind of neutral territory. It's just kind of a fucking crazy nut show, right? And people can be like, yeah, the West is dicking around in there, but so did the Russians, and so have the Indians, and like, so everybody's kind of dicking around in there, and it's just kind of a big dick around, right? We all know it's true. The Americans are just the most recent and the ones that are doing it the most aggressively in this history. But what's happened but then they did Libya, right? Libya happened, and that really perked a lot of ears. Russia especially. Like, Putin openly condemned what happened in Libya. socialists across the world openly condemned what happened in Libya. And now Ukraine? Like, if America is going to do that to Ukraine, like, if America is going to go and pull the coup and then fund, like, the far-right extremists in order to start a war in Ukraine, they can't be reasoned with. Like, they can't be reasoned with. So if you're China, India, Africa, South America, Russia, it's over. Like, it's over. This is a monster beast, a crazed, foaming at the mouth lunatic. And you've got to accept that. Like, you've got to accept that. And they are. And when these countries, which represent way more in terms of world population than the West, by the way, like China alone, 1.4 billion people. India alone, 1.4 billion people. Right? Like, when these countries get off the dollar, it's going to be a catastrophe for the United States. It doesn't matter how many tanks they send. And I don't think that there is anything the United States can do outside of like a total capitulation and like a complete withdrawal that would change anybody's mind at this point. Like it's like written in the stars at this point. It's fate that the United States is going into a massive decline very quickly because the entire rest of the world is going to isolate it. Because it has to be isolated. Like, it's a rogue terrorist state that is acting like an incredible lunatic. Like, just like, not even like a psychopath. Like, not even like, because like a psychopath can still be like calm and calculated and clever and make intelligent moves and still be a psycho. The United States is just like a Harley Quinn lunatic. Just like blowing shit up and going like just doing stuff to see it happen. And like the war in Ukraine is senseless. It doesn't make any sense at all. It's a total fuck up. Like the people who are pushing for that war and who are working on that war are clueless idiots on an enormously massive scale. Like the damage that the United States has done to its reputation in the rest of the world, it cannot recover. Like it can't recover, especially if you're in China. Like, you see what they did in Ukraine, and then you see them doing similar things in Taiwan, and you're like, oh, like there's no walk back from this. That it's become really obvious to everyone on the world stage that the United States will just carpet bomb the shit out of everyone because they've got bombs and they don't know what else to do. Like, they obviously don't have a strategy. They're obviously not thinking things through. They obviously don't care who anybody is or what anybody wants. They're not interested in diplomacy or talking or trade or any of that. They literally want to roll into a region, fund literal neo-Nazis, bomb the shit out of everybody, and steal as much resources as they possibly can. And if they can't do that, then they're going to start a proxy war in the hopes that it'll weaken your country so much that it'll begin to break up and balkanize so that they can do just that. And that's the only thought the United States has. It's the only way it operates. And Ukraine has just made it naked. That, like, when they went into Iraq and Afghanistan, there was always this, like, well, 9/11 pretext, you know, the United States maybe acting rashly and a bit gung-ho foolishly, certainly saying some pretty crazy shit at the UN, right? Like, basically, George Bush goes in alone as a rogue state. But, you know, not the first time. We've seen this playlist a couple of times. You know, not the first person who's ever gone into the Middle East. For various reasons, right? Oh yeah, and by the way, we're also going to blow up Libya. Well, what's Libya got to do with anything? You know, Libya. Oh yeah, by the way, now we're going to do it. Now we're going to do it to Ukraine. Okay, bud, it's over. Like, it's over, dude. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, I ain't gonna get fooled again. Thoughts on the balloon? Dude, the balloon is the dumbest shit of life. Like, the dumbest shit. The people who are crying about this fucking balloon, are unserious losers. Literally every single person. If you see somebody whipped up into a frenzy or a hysteria or taking this balloon thing seriously at all, you put a little mark by their name in your brain and you go, unserious person who should not be listened to. Completely illegitimate person whose opinion can be ignored. The only reason this person's opinion should be taken seriously under any circumstances whatsoever is how dangerous it might be if they get together in a group. Outside of that, if you're genuinely looking at me and trying to convince me that this balloon story is any threat, has any credibility, has anything to it, has any backbone whatsoever, I think you're a gullible rube. Like, it's a balloon. China has satellites. China has access to Google Maps. Like, please explain to me how a balloon with a camera on it is more effective than Google Maps. Like, what crazy intel is China gleaning from this balloon that certainly isn't just a weather balloon that blew off course, that it couldn't get from its own satellite system or even fucking Google Maps? Or like the United States State Department. Like, they wanted to get more information about military bases. You mean the military bases the United States openly admits on having and shows you where they are? Like, what are they hoping to get? We got the top of those buildings, all right. Yep, we think that that's a building, and that's a building, and you won't believe this. Crazy, I know. That is also a building. We got it from our balloon. Like, this balloon story should convince you that there really, truly is no bottom to the praise of their own stupidity in this conversation. People are so pleased with themselves about how stupid they are that they actually think that there's a story. I can't believe they even put a fighter jet in the air. That they shot a missile at this thing. Like, that's the scandal, if you ask me. That's the scandal. Like, if they had brought over an artillery thing and shot it down from the ground, I would have been like, stupid, but fine. They fucking launched. They shot this thing down faster, and they got a fighter jet in the sky faster than they got fighter jets in the sky on 9/11. Oh my God, everybody, it's a balloon. It's 9/11-2 electric boogaloo. Like, the base I operated out is blurred out once you zoom in and up. Okay. Like, but what's it fucking matter, dude? Like, do you actually think the Chinese are going to, launch an attack? Do you actually think the Chinese are going, you know what we should do? We should launch a preemptive attack on American soil. That'll for sure be a good idea that us Chinese for sure are going to commit to. For real, you don't think that the Chinese have, satellites? You don't think that they, what is this balloon doing? The Chinese balloon was looking for traces of American detention centers. Exactly. It's so obvious. It's so obvious that this is a manufactured story. It's really obvious that the American empire is trying to whip up hysteria against China, to whip up dissent against China, in order to get everybody on side, so that when the Americans go to war with China and try to blame China for fighting back, the way that they did to Russia in Ukraine, that everybody will be like, oh yeah, like that balloon. Yeah, China, Uyghurs. Right? Because, like, boy howdy do Americans really care about Muslims all of a sudden. Like, I know that we've been bombing them for 30 years in the Middle East, but man, when they're in China, you know, it really hits me right here, you know, thinking about those Uyghurs. Yeah, because you're right, Marcus, man. It's not as serious. Like, it's so, like... And I know what you're doing. You're just, like, kind of prodding a little bit and being like, well, you know, like, let's entertain it. Okay. Let's entertain it. So, China. The biggest threat to American freedom. The biggest threat to American... Okay, no, I know how I'm going to approach this, everybody. This is how it's going to be. We all got a big problem, kids. And that big problem is China. It's the biggest threat to your freedom that exists in the world today. We got to make sure that those Chinese are put back in their place. Because if the Chinese come over here and cause us problems, then they're going to cause us problems. They're going to take away our freedom and our liberty. You don't want your freedom and liberty taken away. We got to protect ourselves from the Chinese. The overwhelming powerful strength of the Chinese military and their great firewall of China coming down to clamp down on you and take away your freedoms. And the way that they have chosen to do this, their first volley and their first assault, is to pop into the air one single, solitary, quiet little balloon, unsuspecting. So unsuspecting. You'd never see it coming, would you? A singuous, subtle, sneaky, just like those Chineses. Over comes the balloon, and you know what they're doing? Gathering intel on you so they can send their troops in with their Huawei's. The most powerful military force on the planet as far as I'm concerned. And no, they don't have a satellite, they're sending over a balloon. With a Huawei camera on it. That's gonna take a bunch of pictures of the ground. Which, by the way, it's blown by the wind. So, those photos are random. But, you know, this is the best they got. You know, they're still not as strong as we are, obviously. But they're trying, God bless them. But we gotta show them who's boss. Here in America, so we're gonna shoot a $500,000 rocket at a $100 balloon and show those Chineses that they can't randomly send a weather balloon into the world and have it float over America on accident without us showing them who owns this place. God bless America! Like, that is literally the only way that I can even picture anybody actually discussing this as if it's a serious thing that should be taken seriously. It's just with this, like, overt, overwhelming, like, China is so strong and powerful that we have to be afraid of them militarily, but the way that they're choosing to spy on us is with a balloon with a camera on it. Like, the enemy is both strong and weak. But we're not fascists. We're just looking out for our own interests. And our own interests just happen to be right in your soil. America. Olaf Strom. I know you're saying capitalism is also an ideology built on mass murder. But doesn't it bother you in the slightest that communism is built on murdering the opponents? Capitalists? No. Broccoli cheddar rice. This is the best, John. You are cracking us up over here. Thank you. I'm happy to hear that. If I can make somebody smile, that's the best. Hallelujah, brother. Pass the ammunition. Yeah, show them who's boss by putting an air defense base on Taiwan. They better not start a war either. Taiwan. If Taiwan wants us to put a military base right here, within striking distance of Fuzhou, Wenzhou, Taizhou, Ningbo, well, then that's between us and the Taiwanese. And if the Chinese are so suspicious of us and they don't believe anything we have to say, well, then maybe they deserve having all their shit blown up. Yeah, the balloon was spatted 3 weeks ago in Alaska and crossed Canada undetected. Look, it's so obvious. Like they didn't have They weren't like controlling it by remote. You know what I mean? Like people are acting as if there's like on the other side of this, there's like some Chinese guy being like really trying to make sure that this thing happens, right? It's literally they just like were like, well, we need to test the currents, and so we're going to release that in the atmosphere, and well, let's take some readings. Well, isn't that interesting? Well, we should expect it to go on this course right over here, and then it'll loop back around, and maybe we can retrieve it if it hits there. Yeah. So, let's check back in a couple of days and see how it's going. 2 days passed. Oh, the balloon is off course. Oh, it went up. Oh, it went over here. It's in Alaska. It's in Alaska. I bet you dollars to donuts. I bet you dollars to fucking donuts that the Chinese, once they saw that the balloon was going off course and going into like Alaska and all this, I bet you they picked up the phone and were like, hello, America? Just so you know, there is a balloon that we sent into the air for, scientific research, and it's just going over your territory. Just thought you should know. We're not trying to cause you any problems. We're just trying to reach out friendly-like and tell you that something that we made to put in the atmosphere so that we could discover things about our world that we live in has gone off the course that we thought it would go off, which is pretty interesting when you think about it, It's pretty interesting when you think about it that we thought it was going to do something, but it did something else. So this is a real hooey of a humdinger, So in any case, just so you know, there's a balloon in your territory. It's just a weather balloon. I hope you're doing really good and well. We love you. Okay, bye. Click. Like, how else did the Americans even know about this thing? Who gives a shit? Like, literally, how is this story not just some rural redneck being like, what's that there balloon going on there? I don't think I care for that too much. I bet you, Danny, I can take that thing down. I bet you one shiny dollar that I can take this thing down with my hair pea shooter. What? You can't take down that thing there with that there pea shooter. You gotta call Reynolds over here and get him with the AK, and then Reynolds will take it down with the AK. I ain't gonna use no good dang AKs, those Ruski technology. We got here our MP-54. This MP-54 gonna take this balloon down nice and solid. What you watching? What's right? Hey there, Reynolds, where do you think that balloon came from? I don't give two I bet the aliens did it. That's what I think. I bet you it's an alien balloon that we got to take down with the goddamn shut. Now, will you shut your goddamn mouth and let me shoot down the alien spacecraft already? Come on, god dang. Like, how is that not the story? Right? Like, that's obviously, like, the Americans wouldn't care or know that it was China. Like, they wouldn't know about the balloon in the first place. They wouldn't know that it was a Chinese balloon in the first place. Like, how do they know all of this shit? It's probably because the Chinese were like, just so you know. Like... And then they're all like, the Chinese are sending a bunch of balloons. It's a serious thing that we should take seriously and talk about all weekend. The Chinese are attacking us with their balloon technology. Technology from 1753. We all read around the world in 80 days. Well, the Chinese are trying to do around the world in 79 days. And one-up America again. We're gonna show them you can't one-up America again. You won't do that. Fool us once, shame on you. Fool us twice, we ain't gonna get fooled again. This story is so stupid, guys. Like, it's so fucking stupid. I just cannot take this shit seriously. And like... And it's over here to opposition parties demand answers as liberals say little about Chinese balloon. Who fucking cares? Like, Dmitry Lascaris has nailed it on the head. Headlines like this should leave no doubt in anyone's mind that corporate media hacks and our elected officials have lost their minds. The world is on the brink of nuclear war, and these fools are freaking out over a damned balloon. Apparently, these balloons have been coming for years, and now Trump is getting grilled for not doing anything about it. Yeah, like, they're turning it into a partisan. And, like, here, Trump... If I'm Donald Trump, this is what I'm going to do. It's a balloon. It's a balloon. I'm a serious person. I care about serious things. It's a balloon, you know. We here in America, we've got very serious technology, and we do very serious things. We're the best country here. We don't care about balloons. We'll leave caring about balloons to the Biden administration. Like, they sent a balloon up. They sent a balloon up, and that took... And you know what happened? The wind. The wind. Like, if I'm Trump, this is exactly what I'm doing. I'm not going to be like, I really care about China. Like, literally, like, who gives a shit? China sent a balloon up. Ooh. Yeah, meanwhile, the U.S. have, like, 50 bases around China, and they continuously build more. Yeah, exactly. But the Chinese balloon broke through our defenses. Our defensive military bases that we built on China's border. That's probably what it is. They're probably just pissed that anything is making it through. They're probably, like, really grilling somebody right now, being like, how did our radars not pick this up? How is it that this balloon made it through? Turns out it's not even a weather balloon. Turns out that it's literally, like, it was like a gender reveal party in China. And they were just like, okay, release the balloon, and that'll show you and then it'll show the gender. They released the balloon, and it, like, came out pink for a little while, and then the balloon flew away. And they were like, oh, it's a girl! Yay! And then they, like, forgot about the balloon. And then suddenly, like, there's the balloon is in, like, Canadian airspace or whatever. And, like, it's starting to rumble, and China's like, why is there a balloon? What? And it says made in China on it? Weather balloon. Weather balloon. Like, yeah, the person operating the radar, it got through because I saw that it was just a balloon. I actually have the manual for when should I treat something as serious and important. And would you look at this, page 43, paragraph 6, sentence 4, article 53B, I don't give a fuck about balloons. And they say that Putin should be fine with it. This was a cult. This was a co-op operation. This was between Putin and Xi. They got together and they're finding ways to penetrate our defenses through balloon technology. You know, that balloon could have been full of anthrax for all you know. You know, John, you should be taking this so much more seriously than you actually are. You know, John, this is why people aren't going to take you seriously, Jonathan, because you're not taking serious events and serious moments seriously. That balloon could have had a new strain of COVID in it. For all you knew. For all you know, that could have been the case. We should have treated that like the very serious national security crisis that it really actually was, because we're very serious people. Unlike you, we're very serious people. Yeah. The part I love is they're losing their mind about the Chinese balloon. Meanwhile, they should be totally fine about NATO expansion towards Russia. Yeah, exactly. Like, it's totally fine, you know. We were here, and we said no farther. But then we got here. It's just a little closer. And then we're here. Little closer. Right? And then here. Little closer. But it's fine. It's fine. And every step of the way, we were militarizing and building more defenses and putting more bases and, like, getting closer to be able to strike Moscow with military technology. That's fine. But a balloon. A balloon. We are very serious, and we take these things very seriously. Yeah, I'm glad they let me talk about the Kardashians' ass without being blocked. Exactly, Isaac. Right? Let's. They'll let you talk. They'll let you talk about every. They'll let you talk. They'll let you say a lot about nothing. That's what I meant to say. Right? As long as you're saying a lot about nothing, I'm imagining China wanting to release a dangerous strain of COVID that would impact the economy because international travel by plane is 70 years old. Yeah, China is a 4,000-year-old ancient civilization. When they haven't let go of the past. They still think that the old ways are still useful, and so they're not going to use plane technology, right? Why would they do that? Ugh. We have a teacher shortage in my state, and apparently concerned people are bringing up the reason as the woke agenda. Yeah, dude. Like, we really truly deserve the shitstorm that's coming our way. Like, we really, well earned, we worked really hard for it. We sacrificed a lot. And we put in the hard work and the hard effort and really pushed hard to make this collapse happen. And when it happens, we should all stand up and be really proud of ourselves for all pitching in, working as hard as we possibly can to ensure that we fuck over our own people as hard as fucking possible. Because it's obviously what we have done as a people. We worked hard together to achieve this result. And like, nowhere can you see that more evidently than in the education system, where through elementary through high school, you're really teaching people everything about nothing, right? Making sure they don't know anything about civics, making sure they don't know anything about their own country, they don't know how to do taxes, they don't know what the stock market is, they don't know anything about the economic system, they don't know anything about the government system, right? Make sure they don't know anything about how power actually operates and who has power in the society. Don't teach them any of that, right? Make them read To Kill a Mockingbird 53 times, but don't actually teach them how the society actually functions or work. And then when they go to university, they can start to learn that kind of stuff, but make sure you don't mandate it. Make sure they take a class called Math and Art, though, because that's super important. And then make sure that you saddle them with a bunch of debt. Very, very important that you can't have a bunch of free-thinking, free-speaking people actually operating along those principles in the society. So what you end up with is a bunch of well-educated yes men saddled with debt, beholden to a capitalist class that's actually working to betray them utterly. Right? And then you cut over to China, and what are they doing? We're training citizens to become citizens. So they know how the system works, they know how to interact with it, they know skills, they learn things that are important, that connect with how our industry works. Like, Ukraine is putting children on a hit list website to target them. More than 6,000 people on the list funded by donors in the West have been killed. Brutal. I have been to university. Yep. I have a degree from the University of Manitoba. My major is theater. Thank you very much. My major is theater. And I'm happy I did it. I'm overwhelmingly pleased that I did it. I think it's a absolute perversion that the only thing anybody cares about is get a degree to make money. I can't imagine a worse idea. Command Genius says, someone in my class group chat says Anne Frank diary is Jewish propaganda. Jesus fucking Christ, dude. That's exactly the type of shit that, like, some edgy 13, 14-year-old would say, dude. Like, that's so stupid. Like, literally, we found a diary amidst the wreckage of the Nazis, and we published it. Like, Jewish propaganda. Here's my defense of taking a quote-unquote worthless degree. And it's deeply rooted in my own life's experience. I used to be a fundamentalist Christian. I literally believed that a wizard was going to come back at any moment and judge the good and the bad people. and that there was a overarching force in the universe called God who cared if I masturbated. I no longer think that way, and a big reason for that is because of the degree I took in university. I would argue that it is a net positive for the society writ large to have less fundamentalist Christians in it. Or at least less fundamentalists overall. Or at least more people who are capable of critical thought. And if the way for them to achieve that is to take worthless degrees in the humanities, great. Perfect. We should be funding that. That should be the slogan. Fund the arts. Less fundamentalists. Dennis Prager explicitly stated that Anne Frank isn't a historically accurate document because it was made by a child. What a fucking weird little Nazi this guy is, eh? Just like, what a weirdo. You know? Like, it's so fucking obvious to me that we should not have fucking rich people in the society because of people like this. Like, it's one thing to have your weird little ideas, but then it's another that your weird little ideas get platformed and spread throughout the entire world because you have so much money that you can just vomit it at people. Like, Ben, capitalist ideology has taken over the university. They were never intended to be what we made them into. Now it's just a financial transaction. Well, I mean, you can see that most obviously with the dynamic that exists between the economics department and the business schools. Like, why are there business schools? Why is an economics degree not good enough? Like, what is that? And what it is that they turned the economics department into a religious institution, peddling this neoliberal bullshit, right? So anybody who has an economics degree is basically a priest of a failed religious ideology, of a death cult, really. But the capitalists still needed people to actually run businesses, right? And so they made something called business school, where they actually teach people what capitalism is and how to do it, but within the threshold and the idea of a business. And so what you end up with is you end up with people who understand the society they live in this kind of little box called a business, right? Or they understand it in the meta sense, but the meta sense is a fraudulent, kooky, flat earth level ideology called neoliberal economics. So you never actually have anybody who has a perspective looking at your society with any meaningful critique or understanding of how anything actually works. Right? And we wonder why the whole thing's falling apart. Because if that's how you've structured your society, to make sure you're either a good little worker bee or a clueless moron, well, like, at what point is anybody looking at it and going like, okay, so we have this class of people working here, these people are like I've played video games, and there are video games on the market that are a more robust analysis of how societies actually work than any institution in the United States has. That's how degraded it is. That's how in decline we are. That our highest level education facilities, Harvard, Oxford, Princeton, Berkeley, all of them are worse than like Victoria 3. Tell me I'm fucking wrong. Yeah, a Caucasian wizard born to a poor family in what is now Saudi Arabia over 2,000 years ago. Exactly. And super Caucasian, too. Although, that's not true. When I was growing up, we all admitted, no, he was a Jew. He probably wasn't white. Like, it's funny. Like, the sect of Christianity I grew up in was, like, oddly, like, progressive in certain ways. So, like, evolution was real. Like that was something that I think takes people, like, usually when you say evangelical fundamentalist Christianity, like evolution's like off the table and it's exclusively creationism. Whereas, like, I was taught that it was an amalgamation of the two, right? That evolution's definitely true, but there's also a creator, and those two forces coexist with one another. Unitarian? No, it was the Alliance churches. That's what I grew up in, the Alliance churches. The same churches that Stephen Harper is a part of. Portugal sending 2 rusted Himsar tanks, and they have provided the map. And they have provided the map they will travel. Very smart. Because, honestly, dude, we're just sending Ukraine all our junk. Like, we don't care about this stuff. Right? It only sounds impressive to us because we don't know what actually exists anymore. Right? It's not like the United States military is like carting out all the technology it has and showing it to us. Right? Like it's happy bringing out, like, here's a tank that we fought with in Desert Storm. Like, that's old fucking technology. Like, this Abrams tank, it's not, like, that's old technology, dude. Like, that's not new. Right? And, like, most of the wars that are going to be fought are not going to be tank wars. Right? It's not how warfare is going to be done. And so they're just like, yeah, we got this shit lying around, send it to Ukraine, who gives a fuck? 31 of these tanks we were going to decommission anyway. That's what it is. Like, we're not like, we got to get these tanks to the front line of Ukraine to make sure that they're all spiced up with the shit. Like, literally, like, one step away from decommissioning these things. Fucking send them over. I went to a Christian school for 1 year in middle school and was taught creationism and the lie of evolution. Yeah, I went back to public school the following year. Yeah, wise choice. Wise choice. No, I very specifically, I was never taught that evolution was a lie. That it was always like, yep, no, evolution's real, the science is real, we're in with that, but that's like the process of creation. That was always the narrative. That it's like, this is the process by which God created everything, right? And so it's still kind of left the door open for creationist and creationism thought, while also accepting the science, which you sort of like, yeah, intelligent design. Yeah, intelligent design, exactly. Yeah. It's like, you know what my whole thing about intelligent design being like not so great is that the hole that we breathe with is right beside the hole that we drink. Intelligent design. Intelligent design. How convenient the story of Adam and Eve changes after we discover dinosaurs. Yeah. What? Adam and Eve rode dinosaurs, dude. Come on. Just because they don't explicitly state that they were riding dinosaurs, which they obviously were riding dinosaurs, doesn't mean that they weren't riding dinosaurs, which they obviously were. And on that note, I think I'm going to call it, guys. We're over time. Always remember, each and every one of you is a quantum being walking around in quantum energy. These billionaires are spending hundreds of billions of dollars in the hopes you'll never realize it. You'll just stay the good little commodity they need you to be. Rebel. Revolt. Repent. Good luck. We're going to need it.